And we're back with another episode of NBA Observations. It's Gerald Glassford. How you doing? A little bit format change on the mic, so to speak, due to some technical issues beyond my control. But glad to have you here. It is, of course, Gerald Glassford, NBA Observations. Please go ahead and make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you go ahead and hit that notification bell so you know the latest NBA Observations is coming right back at you here on the Lakers Fast Break. But it wouldn't be an NBA Observations without, of course, a great NBA observer. And it, of course, is the man behind the New Century Press and, of course, what he does with the Suave Report. It is Calif Poncy. Calif, the season is now over. I guess the formalities have gone through, especially for the team that you follow. We're excited because right around the corner are the NBA playoffs.
Oh yeah, play-ins tomorrow, and I think all these play-in games even look like they should be pretty competitive. So yeah, I mean, it's just this is the best time of the year for basketball after March Madness goes and kind of holds us over, and then there's about 2 weeks of pretty bad NBA competition, to be quite honest, and then now we're back to like 2 months, 3 months of really good basketball. So I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready to be back to watching basketball already, so I'm excited for tomorrow, and I don't know. That's about it. I'm just excited about it. I guess
No worries. So before we get into it, I did want to mention as far as the Western Conference playoffs and whatnot, we're going to go ahead and touch on that today. I'm going to see if I can get Legend for his thoughts on the Eastern Conference playoffs and whatnot, but I want to go into detail on what to look forward to in the matchups, including the play-ins. So I want to see how it goes from there. But I did want to go ahead and ask you your thoughts on some of the postseason awards. I guess MVP, we really don't have to go too much into it because of who qualified, who didn't, who may still qualify, pending appeal. And all that. But it looks like, of course, that SGA, I think, is a clear-cut choice. The last or late season heroics by Wembanyama weren't enough. The team kind of sputtered out San Antonio near the end. And it looks like OKC will get another MVP with a back-to-back MVP for SGA.
Yeah, I mean, I think he deserves it. I don't really think I don't think anybody else really should. I think he has the best case to win it this year. His team has the best record. He is insulated by a great defense, but he adds to that defense. And as you see, when he's not in these games, OKC's offense really struggles. And so he kind of takes an offense that probably would be somewhere in the 20s and makes it, I think over the last 10 games, they have the second best offense. And I mean, he just kind of, no one has the offensive impact that Jokic does just because of how much he has the ball and his passing ability and his ability to offensive rebound. But I think SGA is second on that list, and he's good enough defensively. And I think he deserves this award. I think he deserved it last year. Should OKC go through the playoffs and win the championship and he wins another finals MVP, I think there's going to be some pretty crazy conversations already ready to be had about him before he even turns 28. So, yeah, I mean, I think that one's pretty sewn up, and I think it should be. The votes that are out so far that we know of, I think he's up 7-2 last time I checked. So, it looks like it's going that way, and the odds have suggested it's going to go that way really for a few weeks now.
Yeah, again, it was looking more and more like it. I know that there were cases to be made by other players, but in the end, again, the record speaks for itself as far as OKC. And despite adamant suggestions otherwise by fans of this channel and others, again, it just came right down to it. The guy who is still standing at this point in time was SGA, and SGA will most likely get his second year of the award as far as it concerned, MVP. And then, of course, I think Wembanyama did come under the wire. Jokic came under the wire, which didn't help the Lakers at all because he had to play in that last game, which helped Denver win and get the 3rd seed. But it is what it is. With defensive player of the year, I think that's even more a dominant, I guess, fashion for Victor Wembanyama. The question is, who, unless outside of injuries and he doesn't get the 65 game plateau, who actually has a chance on getting close to Wembanyama for a defensive player of the year award?
I don't think anybody. I mean, I think Chet Holmgren's going to come in second in voting in this category this year, most likely. And I think he's going to be all NBA first team defense every year. He's able to stay healthy. But honestly, I mean, Wembanyama is just kind of like a 2.0 roided up version of Chet Holmgren. So I don't know why Chet would ever win over him. I mean, I just don't. I mean, history tells us eventually people will get sick of voting for the same guy, but history has not seen a guy like this on the defensive end either. So I don't know. I think we're probably looking at pretty much a lock to set, everything's barring injury. But I think assuming he stays healthy, we're probably looking at as close to a lock as you can get to someone to set the single player defensive player of the year record. Like, I just don't know. He's so much better than everybody else at defense. I just don't know how. And the only thing that maybe you could theoretically use against a guy like this is, well, his team's defense isn't that good. That's just not true. San Antonio also has an awesome team defense around him to make it even better. These are going to be 2 great defenses, the OKC and San Antonio, and he's the best defensive player by a mile of anyone on those 2 teams. So he locked it up this year. He'll lock it up next year. He'll lock it up the year after that. I think this is just kind of where we're at with Wemby.
But I have an interesting category, I think, that might yield some debate, and that is coach of the year.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on coach of the year? I know that a lot of people are looking at the way of Boston. I know some people looking at the way of San Antonio. Charlotte might be in consideration, but which way would you head to for coach of the year for the NBA?
Last time I knew, Bickerstaff was the favorite betting wise. Very close. He's like minus 110 or something, not an overwhelming margin, but I think it should go to Missoula. Like that, this just is a team. This is all expectations based. So no one thought Detroit was going to be a 60-win team, but I thought most thought they would be somewhere between that 48 and 54 win mark. So it's not as if people didn't think Detroit was going to be good. I think there was some leap anticipation from most with them. Boston, I mean, people who are a lot smarter than you or I, who know a lot more about this league, thought it was a gap year. Thought they weren't. It was no Tatum, who maybe they'll make the play-in. Then they were one of the 3 best seeds in the East, pretty much from beginning to end, and a lot of that's on the back of Jaylen Brown. But also, like, look at these guys who are getting elevated, like a Shireman and a Keita, and that comes down to coaching and development. And so, I think it should go to Missoula. I think Charles Lee would be my second guess because, again, I do think this is an award where it seems narrative-based, but really I think this is just an overachieving thing. Like, there's a reason that no one thinks Mark Daigneault should win Coach of the Year, right? Like, it's not just about having the best team. It's about kind of doing the most with less. And I think the 2 guys you're looking at who are doing the most with the least is pretty clearly Missoula and Charles Lee. And so now that Tatum's back, if you want to use that against him, I guess you can. But I think they were clearly going to be one of the top 2 or 3 seeds before Tatum got back. And then it's even almost a testament to me of how effortlessly they were able to welcome Tatum back in. It just kind of felt like no big deal. That's just Jason Tatum, which is not how a lot of people thought that would go. So I think it's Missoula. Charles Lee has a really good case, especially if Charlotte, I guess this isn't supposed to weigh in, but on the Hoop Collective today, I think Tim Bontemps actually said that because of this Luka appeal, people aren't supposed to get their ballots until Friday after the play-in games are played. So those are going to end up factoring into the voting for some awards this year. And maybe if Charlotte goes through the play-in and wins convincingly both games somehow, maybe he has a chance at it. But I just think this is a Missoula award, and I think it should be.
Why not share that same kind of love for as far as Mitch Johnson? You talked about Bickerstaff and the Detroit Pistons exceeding expectations, which they have. Boston certainly has, and I don't disagree with you on that. And Charlotte, of course. But how come Mitch Johnson won't get any love this time around?
I just think, like, in terms of preseason, they clearly have overachieved. But now that we know what we know about San Antonio, Wemby's a top 3 player in the league, pretty much unanimously thought of, higher than that by a lot of people already. Castle's awesome. Fox is good. Harper's good. I just think they have a lot of good, useful, good players. And when you're getting down to this, and he's a great candidate. I mean, I think there's great candidates who aren't even going to get votes this year. Like, I mean, even in like a place like OKC, like they still won 65 games and they didn't have an All NBA player for most of the season. Like, I think in a lot of years that would at least, like, he's on the ballot. Not that he would win, but this year he's not even close, and I don't think he should be. So I think there's just a lot of really good candidates this year. I would even put Phoenix over Phoenix's coach, Jordan Ott.
Jordan Ott.
I would even put Ott over Mitch Johnson. I just think it's nothing against Mitch Johnson. I think he's clearly been a great find by San Antonio, but they just have a ton of really good players, and that's not really what this award has been. It can at times be like the breakout team award, essentially. Like Dagnall did win it a few years ago, and OKC won 57 games. So it can go that direction, but I just think there's so many good candidates this year of teams who you look at their rosters, what they had for more than 80% of the season, and you're just like, really, Cada and Shireman and Peyton Pritchard, like, these are not, like, we didn't think these guys were, I mean, we thought Peyton Pritchard was a role player, but Cada and Shireman, we were like, oh, I guess they're going to play and we'll see what happens. And Luka Garza, and they're awesome. They're really good, and I think the favorite to come out of the East. So I just think Missoula has a better case of doing more with less than those guys. You still look at Charlotte, and like Charlotte has LaMelo's resurged, and he looks like an asset again. Knupple's awesome, and Miller's great. But after that, like, Diabate's pretty good. Then you have like Miles Bridges, guys like that who aren't perfect players that are just getting put in these perfect situations to succeed. And a lot of that's due to coaching. So I think my ballot would go 1, Missoula, 2, Charles Lee, probably 3. Yeah, you can give or take between Bickerstaff or Jordan Knott. I just came into the year thinking Detroit would be pretty good. So this was not – I'm shocked they won 60 games, like I said. But, I mean, I figured they'd win low to mid-50s. So I guess I'm just not completely floored by this, especially with the sheer volume of tanking teams. We're seeing these win totals inflated for OKC, San Antonio, and Detroit, I think, just because a third of the league was tanking for half the year this year. So, yeah, but I think – everyone I listen to, it sounds like, despite, like I said, this, I haven't seen it in a few days, but last time I checked, Bickerstaff was still the betting favorite. And I think Missoula should win this award. And I feel like the momentum is on his side here late in the year.
Well, that leaves us with actually 2 major categories. One we haven't talked about and one we have. The one we have is Rookie of the Year. And in the final few games, I guess, we had said that our minds were still on Com Knipple, but seeing how he has ended the year and ended the season, and how Cooper Flagg, well, I don't want to say how he ended the season because he ended the season with a sprained ankle, but up until then, he was doing quite a bit better than Com Knipple. Com Knipple had gone into a slump. So was that slump enough for you to go ahead and bypass Com Knipple?
I just don't. If I was voting, forced to vote, and it counted towards the total and everything, I think Flagg might have done enough towards the end of the season. I still think I'd ultimately land on Knipple just because it's a season-long award. Like we said, I think the narrative really should play into this one. Like, he honestly made Charlotte just a more serious basketball team than they were before he got there. But I'm not going to think it's wrong, or I'm not going to be upset or think that the voters made a mistake if Flagg wins either. Like, I think he is so clearly the best player in the class, just in terms of who you'd want to build your team around, whatever, insert whatever age-old podcast radio topic you want to insert to it. I think Flagg is so clearly going to be a top 10, 8, 5, whatever you want player. And I think Knupple's going to be really good and has the chance to be a multi-time All-Star, but I just don't think that we're talking about a true like 1A franchise player with Knuppel, and I don't think anyone thinks they are, including Charlotte. So if people just land on Flagg because they think he's the best player and kind of do the Wembanyama route, where there was some stuff on Twitter that I saw seeing obviously a lot of stuff from OKC fans that well, if Knupple's going to win because he has way like significantly worse individual stats and his team is a lot better, but Flag's clearly the better player, then I just think that in history, like Wembanyama won over Chet Holmgren with kind of that thing. And those aren't the same, like those relative seasons. I think that's kind of a dumb argument by Thunder fans. I just think Wembanyama was clearly the rookie of the year and someone who's going to change the game quickly, and he already has. But I can see the point of like, historically, we've often valued individual greatness over team success with rookie of the year. And I think that if they do that this year, I'm not going to think it's wrong, because I think Flag these last month of the season has shown that he's not going to be like really good. He's going to be like a franchise altering player. He's so much better offensively than we thought he would be at this point. So all that to say, I think that if I was voting, I'd still slightly like 51-49 lean Knuppel, but I could change my mind on that tomorrow.
I think I've leaned over.
Yeah.
I think I've leaned over to Flag. I was close before, and I put the reasoning because of the winning record, but that slump by Con Knuppel, he just never snapped out of it from our previous conversation, and I think that's just the difference. And in that time, Cooper Flag, a highlighted game on Easter Sunday where he went through the Lakers defense like butter. And then, of course, his previous game before that was a 51-point game. And then he finished up a strong week until he had sprained his ankles. So I think that's enough. And I think it's to the right people that it will be, because the fact that he was done on a highlighted fashion, and Con Knuppel, I mean, you've not seen any of his games really on national television.
Yeah.
So for a lot of voters, I'm sure that it's sight unseen in many cases. They just know that he has been a great part, and it was the initial driving force in Charlotte Hornets. Is a great rise as far as it's concerned from the depths of lotteriness. I think that they deserve a lot of credit, and he deserves a lot of credit for that, especially. I know that Lonzo Ball had taken over in recent weeks and started playing like the player I think that Charlotte had actually imagined all these years that he would be, as that quintessential team player, but a guy that could step up as the leader of this team. And in that place comes the step back for Con Knuppel as well. So I think, and when it comes right down to it, I am 51-49, and you could talk me back into Con Knuppel, but as of right now, as of this recording, I've leaned over to the dark side, and I'm going the way of Cooper Flag, even though, again, I cannot stand the fact that I will be giving a Rookie of the Year award to another rookie who's on a really bad team.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I think this is one of these years where there's not a wrong answer. Like I both these guys have had such great seasons in really different ways. But I mean, yeah, Flag is so individually brilliant already, and Dallas sucks with him right now on purpose, of course. But if they didn't have, like, if they just would have landed where they should have in the lottery, if they would have, who went 12th in the draft last year that I'm forgetting? I don't remember who went around there. Whatever, average late lottery players. Those are good players. You can get like Derek Lively there. Kason Wallace is around there. You can get lucky and get Donovan Mitchell or SGA there. But I'm just saying it's the average outcome. Like, how bad is this team? Because the AD thing just was never going to work there with the reception of that. I mean, he talked about recently on a podcast, like a fan told him, like, we're not even booing you. We're basically just like booing the situation that you brought. That wasn't you. So that situation is never going to work there. We're always going to have to trade him. Kyrie was probably never going to come back. So this could just be like, I don't know. Like, he didn't go 12, but this could just be like someone the level of like Maxime Reynaud, who I know you love, but like if he's the true centerpiece of your team, you're probably like where the Kings are, which is he's fine. But so, I mean, the level he brings his team to just be able to even compete in games like that against the Lakers. Now, I know that wasn't the Lakers, but any team with LeBron James on the roster, like, I think it's really pretty impressive how combobulated they look with him at the helm already. And I think they're a team that we could see jump pretty. I think the West has a few candidates to next year jump. Dallas is one of them. Utah's one of them for me. if Portland were to go out and add a star, I think they could make a second jump. But I think this Dallas thing, with how good Flag is, could really come together pretty quick. And so if someone lands on him, I'm not going to think they're wrong. Like, your reasoning makes complete sense to me. And like I said, if I actually had a ballot, this would be one that I was like sitting down to the very last second. I don't know. But I think on right now, I'm still going to give the season-long edge to Knippel.
All right, then. Once again, it is Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the New Century Press, and of course, also as well the Suave Report. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for joining us for some NBA observations. Again, going through the major awards as far as concerned before we get into the playoffs. And I do want to throw a curveball at you. I did get a notice that I'm not going to be able to meet with Legend this evening as I record this. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go over the playoffs in detail, so I can go ahead and spread that out there for everybody as far as our thoughts on the Eastern and Western Conference playoff pictures. So with the last award, I want to go ahead and mention that would be the most improved player is what I think I'd look at as far as it's concerned. So this is something we haven't really talked about. There are a lot of candidates, which is a good thing. But there's not one definitive candidate, which is also a good thing. There's a lot of players who have improved their game, and there's a lot of players who have taken a next step in their status. And I understand a lot of people don't want to go ahead and look at players in their second or third year because those are development years. But who do you have as a most improved player and why?
I really think this is a pretty easy one for me, and I just think it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, I just think he's the odds-on favorite. I wish I had some flaming hot take for someone on one of these, but I just think the odds kind of reflect what should happen a lot of the times. They're not trying to give away money there at those books. So he averaged 9 points a game last year on Minnesota, and he was a crafty role player, like a good role player. Like OKC played him in the conference finals, and he's a good role player who did a lot for that team. But he's now a 20-point per game scorer and like a 1A, 1B lead guard on a good Hawks team that we'll get into later. Like, I think that this isn't like the point of what I think this award should be, because I do fall into that group where like Jalen Duren is great and he deserves some buzz, some recognition for this, as some other guys who I'm going to forget to mention. But this isn't necessarily shocking that this happened with Jalen Duren. Now, is it surprising that he's this good right now? Sure. But in terms of like, if you had told me before the season, like Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to average 21 points a game and be the lead guard on a playoff team, it wasn't in China. Like, that's not happening in the NBA. He was on 3 different teams and couldn't stick until he got to Minnesota and became like a nice off the bench guy who they could throw in the playoffs. But he's clearly really good. His shot making's really, like, he makes hard shots. It's not like this guy's getting wide open threes. Like, he's creating stuff off the dribble. So he's emerged into a guy who I think in a weakened East could be like on that fringy all-star discussion next year, maybe, if he maintains this level. We'll see if this is a one-year blip thing. But if he plays like this all next season, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't at least be like, well, he's down that like Scotty Barnesy type, like that range of all-star. Not that he's as good as Scotty Barnes, because he's not, but just like he's as good. I think he's as good as Brandon Ingram, and Brandon Ingram made the all-star team last year. So I think he deserves mention, and I think this should be his award. And I think when I bet on it like 4 days ago for him to win the award, he was pretty heavily favored. So I think that this award is made for people like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, where I'm shocked that this is happening with him at this stage of his career. Like, if you'd told me coming out of college, maybe, like, I thought he was a fine prospect. Clearly the NBA did too. He didn't even go in the lottery. He's fine. He's a mid-round pick, but he's now like a barely sprinkle all-star type guy, and that's pretty shocking. And I mean, they got him on the MLE last summer. Like, the NBA didn't think he was this, or he would have got more money than that. So I think this is Nickeil Alexander-Walker's award.
I have to say I agree with you on that. I know that leading into the season, I know that Legend was very high on the Nickeil Alexander-Walker signing, and I couldn't say I disagree with him. And it just seemed like, of the 3 that Minnesota tried to retain, I really thought he would be the best one to retain by Minnesota. It just seemed to be he's had the most versatility and most to offer the Minnesota team, but instead they went big for Julius Randle and Naz Reid, and both gave them, I guess,
solid seasons. What
solid.
they are.
Yeah, Randle was struggling for a while after the All-Star break, but he came around a little bit, and then Naz Reid was as the highest paid guy coming off the bench. I don't know. That's a great thing to have. Again, that's a lot of money coming off your bench, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker truly was the guy that I think they should have kept in Minnesota. I think it's clear now, but it's something that we had said when I previewed the team with Legend, and he has been such a great boost for Atlanta. He is the reason why Trae Young is in Washington, D.C. right now.
Yeah, I think he's part of it. Like, I think maybe that divorce, we were heading towards it eventually anyway, but I'm sure I really think he expedited it. Like, they're like, oh, we're not gonna, if we trade Trae Young, we're not gonna not have someone to handle the ball. Like, we'll bring back McCollum, who's been great for them, and I mean Alexander. Like, I mean, I already have said my case with him just now. So, I mean, I think he's great. I think this is his award. I think he's going to probably continue to just tick up and up until I think he probably has another half level to go up, just because this is really his first season of heavy on ball reps. Like, we'll see. Now that can go one of two ways. Maybe teams adjust next year when they have a year to figure out his tendencies, or maybe he continues to get better. And so, yeah, I mean, I was in that same camp this offseason where I get the Naz Reid thing. Naz Reid's great. They love him in Minnesota. They have the flags. They have, like, he's a beloved figure there. But you're just paying too much money for a group of centers that I think aren't amazing, in my opinion. Like, I think Gobert's really good at what Gobert's really good at. We've also seen that Gobert is underwhelming in the playoffs because he's just not a good offensive player, and that's fine. He's one of the better defensive players that's ever played, but you're in heavy for him. I think they still pay him about $30 million, if I remember correctly. And then, I mean, Naz Reid is kind of like the opposite thing. Like, he's a really explosive offensive big, but defensively he doesn't give you much, and that's, you kind of have to have a big who can do both, even if it's a lower level of both. I think, in my opinion, for trying to win a championship, I think you'd almost rather have a guy like Ikeda, where he's not high, he doesn't need the ball, and he's not going to make threes, and he's not going to do anything great. Like, Naz Reid could have 40 points in a playoff game, and it wouldn't be like unheard. Like, it's not like it would, you're like, there's no way. Like, he makes 7 threes, whatever. He can do that. And Kata can't. But Naz Reid's not great defensively. And he just don't, I just think when you're, especially now that they're paying him so much, he just leaves you wanting a little bit more. And I think we've seen that in this current NBA, nothing is more valuable than these wing defending 3-point shooting guys. And we're seeing that OKC's loaded up on those types of guys. Boston's loaded up on those types of guys. San Antonio has like a Castle and Barnes and Vassell. They have guys like that. So I think to let one out the door with no real way of getting another one, and now they ended up with Dosunmu, but I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is just better for what Minnesota needs, because he's, I think, a better defensive player when he's able to really focus in on that side than AO is. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was a clear mistake by them. I thought that in the moment. I mean, because just like watching from the Thunder perspective, like, he was always the one guy on that Minnesota team. You're like, man, he at least makes Shea try. And it's funny enough, they're cousins. We all know that by now. But SGA always has good success against McDaniels and Edwards. And it was like, no matter, like, he's one of those guys like Luka, like Jokic, like Wemby. Like, you can throw people at him, doesn't really matter. Like, you can, maybe they'll knock some percentage points off, but probably not. Alexander Walker always did good on him. So when a fellow Western Conference contender kind of just let him go for the mid-level exception, it certainly was a sigh of relief for Thunder fans, I think. So, I mean, Minnesota, I think, for the story they've been from where they were 5-6 years ago to where they've been the last 2-3 years is obviously really exciting for a franchise that just hasn't had a lot of success before this period. But I really do also think they've maybe mismanaged some stuff. So, yeah, but I mean, getting back, I mean, it's Alexander Walker to me, and then there's a really big gap. And that's not to discredit Jalen Duren, who I think should probably be second for this award, but I just think Alexander Walker becoming a borderline all-star level guard is pretty shocking, and that's what he is. There has been this season.
Once again, it's Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the New Century Press, and also as well with the Suave Report. We have now gone through our thoughts on the player awards, the major player awards that are going to be distributed throughout the postseason. So if you have thoughts on them, please put it below. We'd love to hear from you on that. So without further ado, not to put in the pun about ado, Thiero, but wanted to go ahead and start off on our playoff preview. I want to go ahead and start with the play-ins. The play-in, I've grown to like them. I've grown to like them as far as it's concerned. I'm not still there yet on the NBA Cup, but the play-ins, I won't argue with you anymore. I know that LeBron, I don't even think he can argue with that anymore as far as the play-ins, what they do. Not only for the league as far as TV, financial, things of that nature, but also as well for the fact that it's just interesting right now, and it gives more teams a chance to at least do something in the postseason, have some reason to go ahead and provide themselves some hope for either this season or next. And with that, I want to go ahead and into the play-ins first. We'll start with the East. And in the East, the play-ins will start with a 9-10th seed. I'm almost kind of let down with Charlotte, because the way they were transcending and the way they were moving up, I really thought they had a chance to get as high as 5th place in the Eastern Conference at one time. 2 weeks ago, they had all the momentum in the world, and they looked like they were going to go ahead and steamroll and overhaul everyone in that medium to lower echelon in the playoff standings, and they ended up not doing it. They almost backed into the playoffs as far as the play-in is concerned with 9th place and the 9th seed. They are facing off against the Miami, I don't know what you want to call them, the 83ers. Do you want, I know that Van McMahon calls them that, but the South Beach flu, because they definitely played like they had flu at times. This is a clearly disappointing season. Before we get into who will win that game and the matchup, I want to talk about Miami a little bit, because they've been under the radar for very obvious reasons. Eric Spoelstra has always been considered one of the best coaches in the NBA, but I don't consider this to be one of the best coaching jobs that he has done. Now, he has been in the play-in many times. He has gone through like 8 seeds, and he's made miraculous runs with Miami Heat. I don't see that happening this time. I just see this team as a team that's been languishing for a while now. Nobody's really told them to go ahead and turn the lights out as of yet, but I think Charlotte may do just that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Charlotte's clearly the better of these two teams, and they have been for over 40 games now. Miami started off the season great with this kind of this style they imported over from Memphis, where they really low on ball screens, things like that. But people figured it out, and they stopped shooting so well from outside, and they just kind of never recovered. And on the Spoelstra thing, for my money, he's still maybe one or two of the best coach in the NBA. I just think that this is a team that lacks high-end talent. Like, Bam is really good, but I think Bam is best suited to be in like a Chet Holmgren role, where it's like he can score 83 points in a game like we saw, I guess. But in reality, your preference is he's getting you 9 rebounds. He's being A+ defensively, protecting the rim, giving you 15 to 20 points, and using he's a really good passer for his position. And so that's what I think you'd want him to be. And he's the best player on this team. And so I think if he's your best player, I just don't know what your ceiling is. Ever since Jimmy kind of walked out the door, this team's just been this kind of perpetual line of, oh, they're fine. Okay, they're fine. I mean, we saw last year they lost the first round in a sweep in like the most lopsided fashion that's ever happened before. So yeah, I mean, I just think this is a team that Miami is really in kind of like the Lakers, and like they're just really relying on outside acquisition. They've been conditioned to do that. There's no reason not to be. And we're in a time period where it's a little harder to make those things happen. Obviously, free agency is not really a tool teams can use all that much anymore. So they have to trade for people. And then they don't really have young guys like the Dame Lillard thing a few years ago, where he really wanted to go to Miami, but Portland, like, why do we want Tyler Hero, who we're about to have to pay, and for 4 of your, like, they just haven't had a good package. And so I'd expect them to get involved with Giannis, because I do think that Ware is a really interesting young piece. I think Hawkes is a really interesting young piece. I think have the ammo if they can get in those conversations. I think they have the ammo to go make a Miami-esque splash and get a star like they always have with Alonzo Mourning, and then obviously LeBron and Shaq, and time after time, that's just kind of been their formula to being a good team. But Norman Powell, while I think he's a solid player, like he's just not that guy. And so we'll see if they even re-sign him. I just think Zach Lowe a few months ago said something I think that was good about Norman Powell, where you see his stats and it's like, oh, Norman Powell's great. And then you watch the teams he's on. It's like, oh, he's fine. He gets his points and he's underwhelming defensively and he's older than you'd think and just kind of whatever. And they got him for free. So they should have done that trade. It was a good acquisition, no doubt. But this is just a team that I don't think quite – I mean, I don't even think they have as much talent as Charlotte. It's clearly they don't have as much talent as Charlotte to me. So I'd expect them to lose this game. I think this feels like a pretty dead team, barring Hero can go crazy. And when your building blocks are Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, I just think that this is the team you have. I think both those guys are good when they have a Jimmy Butler with them, or someone that when the lights really get bright, like we have a guy we know can go get a tough bucket, but that's not anyone that's on this roster right now. And so until they can go get a guy like that or a star to kind of reorient their team around, I think this is where Miami's going to be. And I don't think that's a Spoelstra thing. I think that's the league is more talented than it's ever been thing. The East showed a really like an outlier amount of depth for what they've had over the last 25 years this season. And so I think that until they make a pretty major shift roster wise, and I don't know if that means trading Bam. I honestly think if I was Miami, I'd go the other way this summer. I just think Pat Riley's old. Maybe have Spoelstra maybe try and step in, do something like that, bring in a new. Like I just think it's time. And that's not to say, like I just said, I think Spoelstra is one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the league, but this just feels stale to me. It's that they're the same thing every year. It's like, oh, Miami, you got to watch out for them. It's like, well, do you really? I know they made the crazy finals runs in the bubble and then to play Denver, but those were crazy outliers, and you just can't bet on crazy outliers. So I think that this is a team that if it was me running the team, assuming, and I don't know everything, and I don't think they'd do this, but I mean, I'd see what was out there for Bam Adebayo. I think there'd be a huge appetite for him in a league that needs capable bigs, and especially ones who are really good at defense and smart like he is. So I'd see what the crazy haul you could get for him. And if you don't want to do that, then you got to go do what you can to get a Giannis or get like the fact that they weren't a team who took a chance on Ja Morant. I just felt like that really reeked of Miami to me, where it's like, oh, well, here's, whatever. Here's Norman Powell's expiring and whatever you need to do to get Ja Morant. And then you come in and maybe he sucks, but if he sucks, it doesn't matter. Like you're not going anywhere. And I think you'd think Pat Riley's smart enough to know that. And so I think this should be a big summer of change for Miami. We'll see if it is. But yeah, I mean, this is Charlotte. These are just 2 teams going in opposite directions to me. Like Charlotte's clearly ascending. Miami at best has leveled off, and at worst is going downward to me.
So we'll see what happens, but I think Charlotte is going to take it as well. They're going to be so excited in Charlotte because it's their taste of a play-in after many years. And the last time they had a play-in or a chance in the playoffs, I don't remember it going well. I think they lost quite a bit in that. Yeah.
I mean, they were in the play-in once with LaMelo Ball, I think. That sounds right. They might. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's Charlotte. They've never had playoffs. Like they're good players that have been there. They've really had one truly great player who's ever been there, and he left after his rookie deal, and that was Alonzo Mourning. And so ever since then, they've just kind of been floating about with shout out to my dad's favorite player of all time, Glenn Rice, Kemba Walker's, guys like that. What it seemed like LaMelo's destiny was until he turned it around this season. So good for Charlotte, good for their fans. This is an exciting team that I think should try it. Like if it were a situation where Miami did trade Bam Adebayo this summer, that's a team who should be all over that. I can't imagine a better team to player fit to me than Bam to Charlotte. So I think this is a team poised to make a big move, and I think they're going to get a taste of the actual playoffs this season, if I had to guess.
And so with that, they would be facing off against the teams, whoever is the loser of the 7-8 matchup between the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are the home team for this one. Orlando, this has to be one of the most disappointing teams. I mean, There's a myriad of teams that we could go into it, but I know that Orlando, such high hopes for this team, but it really never came to fruition, and you can't blame major injuries on it. A lot of it has to do with just the fact that it's just not a great fit, no matter how many times you try to put it together or add pieces to it. It's just not a great fit. I mean, the Franz Wagner injury, you could go ahead and say that that hurt them a little bit, but I think this team, even when it came in fully stacked, just underwhelmed beyond expectations.
Yeah, the East play-in is like the opposite of the West to me almost, because it's like so sad. Other than Charlotte, who's like obviously so thrilled to be there and good and fun and young and everything. I think what ideally the play-in is like what Charlotte is. It's a young team working their way up. But other than that, like Philly, Embiid has an insane, like that's just one of those where I'm like, man, this poor guy just cannot catch a break. Like what I don't know how to say, appendectomy. Like
appendectomy, yes.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like that's so random. Like there's nothing that happened. I mean, that's just so
you could be fine literally a day before and then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you.
So I mean, that sucks, and he's gonna be out. And these are two teams that I just think have to be really disappointed with this season. Like Philly, Maxi's clearly really good, and they found something with Edgecombe, and that's great. But then the Jared McCain thing got overblown. Like he's some great player, and he's in reality he's probably going to evolve into like a solid rotation guard. That's probably what he is. But still, like I don't think this should be a team that's in the position to be trading talented young guys, and they did to kind of duck the tax. Essentially, that's the only reason they did it, was just to duck the luxury tax. And so, yeah, I mean, these are two sad teams. If I had to roll with one, that Boston loss, I think that Boston loss does one of two things for a team in Orlando's position. It either is like, okay, guys, like we know the season sucked, but let's go make up for that and win this play-in game. Or it can be like, let's get out of here. Let's get this coach fired. Let's do what we need to do. Like, let's move on. So I think if I had to pick a side, I just think Philly, despite being in a pretty sad place with the Embiid thing and Paul George getting old, and although he's been good since he came back, but still, I mean, you can't count on too much from Paul George going forward. So I think I'll pick Philly, but I don't think either one of these teams really has much of it. If Philly got Embiid back, they could maybe take 2 off Boston, I think. But I mean, I think that's the highest possible upside of either of these teams.
I think Orlando will take it this game. I just, because of the Embiid loss, I think that's really going to affect Philadelphia, especially on the inside. One of the things that Orlando can do well is it does have interior defense, and it does have, I guess, the size advantage, the body advantage in this matchup without Embiid, and I think that's the difference for me. So I am going to slightly lean Orlando. It's not going to be a pretty game to watch.
No.
If you're going in, you're going to think it's like a 128 to 126 barn burner where both teams are shooting 50, 40, 90. I think you're sadly mistaken. I think this is going to be an ugly game in the 90s, and I think that it's going to be Orlando pulling it out. But still, that doesn't excuse their season in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
No, and I mean, I think the loser of this game is pretty destined to lose to Charlotte. I just think Charlotte's been better than both of these teams for half the season now, and so I think if you lose this game, you're probably done. And so I think, I'll lean Philly, you lean Orlando. We'll see. I mean, I just don't really have. This is the one play-in game I just don't really have very strong conviction about. It's just kind of two teams that I think would be more than fine if their season was over. And the only reason that maybe you're against it if you're Philly is, I mean, you want to make the playoffs, but in reality, like, everyone says they want to make the playoffs, and I think if they went home, looked themselves in the mirror, I think they'd be fine to go to Cancun right now if they had the option. That's just the season it's been to me for Philly with these injuries, and it's about the future there now. Like it's not about Embiid or Paul George anymore. It's now about Maxine Edgecombe, and that's a better foundation than 90% of the league. So you have something. They're giving up their first round pick to the Thunder this year, but which sucks in a good draft, especially if they do lose like you predict and end up in the lottery. Like that's a tough blow because you could add another. I mean, this is about as good a year there is to be in the late lottery. Like you don't know who you're going to get. That usually be like top 7 picks. So that's unfortunate for them. But I still don't think, like, I don't know. I just don't think that either one of these teams has been happy with the season, and I think they're probably both going to try and win, of course, but not be too bummed if they lose.
So who are your 7 and 8 teams coming out of the East?
So I'll have Philly in the 7, and I'll have Charlotte in the 8, and Orlando missing the playoffs, which would be like one of the more unmitigated disasters we've had in a while in the NBA, I think.
And Jamal Mosley will go to many people's, including my pick of the year for coach of the year, to a team the point where he'll probably be let go at the end of the season.
I think he's getting probably fired either way, but I mean, if they miss the playoffs, absolutely. Like, there's no question.
I have slightly different. I have Orlando as my number 7, and I have Charlotte as my number 8. I think if Embiid does not come back, then I think Philadelphia might just lose 2 straight on that. But if Embiid comes back, I think he's that much of a difference maker. I understand it's not the Embiid of old, but Embiid out there still really gets you 25 and 10.
Yeah.
If you give him enough attempts. So just his presence, I think, can make a difference in both those games. But if he's not there, then I
don't think I've seen that there's like any chance that he's going to play in the play. And now if they get to the playoffs, maybe, but they're going to have to get a huge game from Maxey. Like, that's what you're going to have to do. And he's done that over and over again this season. So it's possible, but I think your logic is sound. I just think this Orlando situation just feels so, I don't think the Philly situation feels toxic. It just feels like the whole Embiid thing is just like so sad. I mean, it's sad for me, and I don't care about Philly. So, like, I can't imagine being there, and like, it seems like you're maybe finally ramping up, and they probably knew they weren't going to like beat Boston or anything, but if that team's fully healthy, I think, like I said, they could take 2 off Boston. And if you can take 2 off someone, you never know what could happen in that 6 games. So I just think the vibes are both like disappointment, but they're different level. Like, I think Orlando, like, we don't know who's going to be on the team next year. The coach is gone. The GM could be gone. Like, we don't know. Who knows what's going to be happening in Orlando next season. Philly, I think, like, you're locked into this Embiid deal. You're locked into this George deal. You're just kind of going till these end. But you have Edgecombe on a rookie deal, and you have Maxey, who's an All-NBA type guy when he stays healthy. So I'll lean Philly just because I think the vibes are so bad in Orlando. But I think either or, this wouldn't surprise me.
I also think in the West that the play-ins are a little bit more interesting there. A lot of name power there as far as it's concerned. I'll leave it to that. The 9th, 10th game is going to be very interesting with Golden State heading into Clipperland to face off against the Clippers. It is Steph versus Kawhi in many people's eyes before they become teammates. But I'll leave that to your imagination on that one if it happens. But I think Kawhi would have to get his contract voided, I think, for that to happen. But we'll have to wait and see. Your thoughts? The Clippers, after that tremendous comeback, after that horrible start, kind of just after the trade deadline, just became meh. And even though Kawhi has had statistically, you could say, his best season, he qualified for the 65 games. That's in and of itself amazing. I think that should be one of the great hallmarks of NBA history right therein. But be that as it may, him versus Steph, it's going to be very interesting because Steph is coming off that serious knee issue.
Yeah.
How well will he hold up, and how well will the Clippers hold up with Kawhi?
I think that this is a great name game because Steph Curry is one of the 12 best players of all time. Kawhi Leonard, but I just think the Clippers are a lot better than the Warriors. Jimmy Butler going out, and he's old. I mean, that's pretty worrisome. We'll see how he gets back from that. I think it's in LA, like, and with a good home court with the Intuit Dome. So I mean, I think I'll take the Clippers. I don't know that I'll pick them to win the next game, but I think they'll beat Golden State. Now, as someone who covers OKC, I want Golden State to win, A, for the lottery pick, and B, because I just think it would be way more fun for the Thunder to beat the Warriors than any of these other outcomes. just for the passing of the torch, the narratives, all the stuff that writers love, all the things that would play into that very boring, probably like 4-game, 18 average point of victory series that would be. But I'll take the Clippers. I just think they're better. I think Kawhi, shockingly, is a better health bet than Steph right now. And I just think that he's been better than Steph this year anyway, as good as Steph is. So I'll take the Clippers. Neither team has any remote size that you like. That's going to be the detriment of both of them in the next game, in my opinion. But I'll take the Clippers to kind of outduel the Warriors here in a huge name, but pretty underwhelming matchup, in my opinion.
The next play-in is the 7-8 matchup with Portland on the road against Phoenix. So this is going to be intriguing. Denny Avdija was really looking like an all-star. Was really playing like an all-star for 3/4 of the season, but his back injuries, I think, got the best of him, and he started to look like a little bit more normalized as the back quarter of the season went on. And it got down to the end of the season for him. What are your thoughts as far as him going in? I don't know if he's 100% or close to it heading into this against a surprising team in the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker seems very happy. I would be too, with the kind of contract that I got and the fact that I got 2 years added on in the $70 million range. That's always very nice to add on to it. Loves that golf out there in Phoenix. Go ahead. But with that, Dillon Brooks and everybody else there, as far as on Phoenix, their front line has been not healthy as of late as well. I mean, the trepidations the Lakers had about Mark Williams seems to have come to fruition after a solid start for him with his inability to stay in the lineup, and then the size after that, or the experience after that, is kind of sketchy at best. But your thoughts, my friend, the surprising Suns going against the, I guess, kind of surprising Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty, I think, clear. Like, I've been pretty high on Portland all year. I think Kamara's going to be one of these all-world role player types. I think Klingon's really come into his own. And Avdija, I think he has been trending down, but I think really the last 2 weeks of the season, he kind of rebounded and looked back at that level that he was at early in the season. So we saw against Denver in that game that they blew, but Avdija was great in that game. So I'll take Portland. I think Portland's better. I think they have more good players. Drew Holiday's still a really effective, good player to me, and you're right. I mean, like, we'll see with these Suns centers, and I think Klingon and Rob Williams is a really good center rotation, regardless of opponent. Rob Williams, Time Lord, has kind of finally been able to be healthy and back in the swing of things just in time for him to be a free agent, funny enough. We'll see.
Funny about that.
See how that leans. We'll see who makes that maybe possible mistake, but he's been great this season, regardless, for whatever the reason. And Klingon, I think, I don't know if he's ever going to be an all-star just because of how good the bigs are out west and how good they seem poised to be for the next decade, but he's going to be a really, really good, helpful to winning player. And if he starts making that three more consistently, who knows? But I think Portland's just better than Phoenix. Dillon Brooks has had a great season, but I just don't necessarily trust him to truly be like a go-to second guy in a big moment like this. I think we saw his teams that he was a really big part of in Houston, always in Memphis, both really always underwhelmed in the playoffs. And Booker's great. Booker's clearly the best player in the game, all that. But I think you can throw Holiday at him. You can throw Kamara at him. They have the Suns, on the other hand, they can throw Brooks at Avdija, but Avdija is so good at drawing fouls and Brooks is so overly aggressive. I think that could be a foul situation that they get Brooks into. So I'll take Portland in this. I just think they're a better team. They have more good players, and I like where they're headed in the long term, especially.
Where does Scoot Henderson fit into all this? Because he came back after, a long injury, which has been his entire career, has not looked that bad. I don't know if he's starting for the play-in, but he was starting to be the player that I think that a lot of people had started to look at as far as concerned. I with him, I still see the future. I see next year as a possibility for him to take that step of growth. But if he provides anything for them in that play-in, it could be something where it takes pressure off Advia, and hopefully will for Portland fans out there, will get them a win in Phoenix.
Yeah, and Shaden Sharp's back too. That
Mhm.
injury seemed like it was maybe going to take him out for the year, but he got back for the last few games of the season. And I just am not a fan of that archetype of player. He doesn't do what you'd want defensively. He's not a super connective passer, but he's a really gifted scorer, and that is what games can come to. Like if it's a one game do or die situation, he could just go 8 for 14 and make 4 3. Like he's that type of scorer. So. And Phoenix has their own version of that with Jalen Green, but I think Sharp's a little bit better than Jalen Green, in my opinion. So yeah, but on the Scoot thing, I've never been a big. He's just so bad around the rim, which is so odd because he's so like freakishly athletic when he's healthy, but just has never been a good finisher. But that shooting's coming along. His decision making, while still not quite where you'd want it for someone you drafted 3rd overall to be like your lead guard into the next generation, it's gotten to a little bit more manageable point. And I mean, I think the most encouraging thing is I think he's proven that you don't extend him this summer, no chance, but he has earned the right to play a big role in the team next year, which honestly, with Lillard coming back, I didn't know if that was the case. Portland to me on a different note, like this is just, I've said this 3 or 4 times here. This is such a star trade team to me. And I don't know who it is. If Orlando wants to trade one of those guys, if like Franz Wagner is available, I think Portland should be all over it. I think him and Avdia can play together. And I think that Sharp is who I'd trade. That's my personal preference. It's just not my favorite type of player, but I like where this Portland team's going, and I think Scoot should play a lot next year because he seems to have some defensive upside that I don't think Sharp has, and that's really what this comes down to me because for better or worse, you're in it with Holiday. Like you traded for that contract. He's under it for a lot of money for either 2 or 3 more years after this one. Unless you want to attach assets, my guess is you're not trading that. Like he's on your team for that money, and he's been good this year. And in Portland, you don't re-sign an all-time franchise icon like Dame Lillard and say, well, I guess we'll play 18 minutes. Like he's probably going to start and he's probably going to play a lot of minutes. And the last time we saw him, he was still really good before that injury. So I think that's fine. But I mean, in short, like there's just not enough guard minutes to go around. That's not even including some of these other guys that are on the end of their bench that don't like demand minutes and they do not need to make any plans because of them. But like, I don't mind Blake Wesley and I don't mind Caleb Love and I don't mind Vit Krejci, like these guys who I think profile as guards, especially defensively. So I don't know. I mean, I think Portland should be incredibly excited about where they're at. I think they've done nothing about building an NBA team's easy, but to me, they've done the easier part of that, which is I think they have like an awesome which it's funny, they never could do this with Lillard in his prime, but they have an awesome superstar surrounding cast. Kamara's should be all NBA first team defense. Klingon should be near a defensive team. Drew Holiday's Drew Holiday. Avdia's better than you'd think. He's not great, but he holds up kind of in that SGA mold where it's like high usage offensive player, not going to guard the other team's best player, but they hold up and they're not a liability. And so if you can get a Zion Williamson in there, if you can get a Franz Wagner, if you can get, I mean, throw out names like, whoever it may be. I think this is a team that's really looking up and is a superstar away from not competing with the likes of OKC, San Antonio, Denver, but being in that next group. And so I think this is going to be a launching off point for them. And really, from that perspective, this is a really important game for them because their draft pick it's the only draft pick protection that's ever been like this. They traded a first like 5 or 6 years ago, basically to get Derrick Jones Jr. from the Bulls. And it was lottery protected. And usually those picks go away after 3-4 years, whatever. It was lottery protected in perpetuity. So until they're out of the lottery, the Bulls, it's protected and their pick is locked. They can't trade a bunch of future draft picks until they get rid of that. So from my perspective, finding that team, now the players don't care about that, obviously, but I think it's either or. If they lose, you get a lottery pick and add it to this talented team in a really deep lottery. If you win, it unlocks a bunch of picks, and for my money, is the team that should most be chasing a star this summer.
So run that by me again. For of course, Derek Jones Jr. is not even playing for said team now at this time, but run that by me again. So what happens? What is the stakes as far as it's concerned?
So it's lottery protected in perpetuity. So basically, like
forever.
Forever. They've been in the lottery every year since they did the deal. And it never goes. The Chicago has it, and it never goes away until they're out of the lottery. So
if they get out of the lottery, Chicago gets that pick,
and Chicago gets pick 15 or whatever, and it unlocks all Portland's future picks to be traded. Plus, they have those Milwaukee picks. So, I think this season is such a win for Portland. You find out you have a fringe all-star, maybe better than that guy in Avdia. Klingen's clearly real. Like, I thought Klingen would be a solid center. Klingen's really good, and that's been clear this season. Kamara's got his 3-point volume to the point where he's a really useful player that I think any team would want to have for the next 7 years. So I think this team in a great position compared to Phoenix. Like, I think Phoenix is – I accidentally turned my TV on. I think Phoenix is they're better than everyone thought, but they're still not in a great place. Like, this is still basically like you hope Malawach turns into something, but I think it was maybe a little unwise to pick a complete project guy when you're in the dire straits they're in roster-wise, just in terms of the future. They did get Fleming in the second round, and Fleming seems like he's maybe something. He's athletic and I don't know if he makes them, but he likes to shoot the three. At least he did at college. So I just think that Portland's of these two teams is the team heading in the better direction. They're playing well right now, coming off those 2 wins. They really were the better team against Denver, and then 2 wins against the Clippers in big games that there were real stakes for. Both teams really wanted it. So I'll take Portland in this one in the longest way possible.
Well, with that, who are the 2 teams then come out then? You've talked about as far as what you're seeing with that West play-in. I am going to say that I have in that matchup with Phoenix and Portland, I'm going to say Phoenix still gets it. I think that the home court advantage will at least get them that win. I don't think it gets them much more, but I think at least it will get them that win. I think it'll be, and you're talking about the Clippers. I think both of us have the Clippers in that 9-10 matchup. The Clippers on the road in the Rose Garden, the former Rose Garden. Do you want to say the Portland? Well, you said the Portland Trailblazers you have winning that game. I have Phoenix.
I have Portland in the 7, and I have Phoenix in the 8.
Okay, so you say they beat the Clippers. I am going to say that Portland may not make it. I'm going to say Phoenix and the Clippers will be the teams that are 7 and 8 coming out of the West. Again, Portland, I think is has got a lot of pieces in place, like you said, for the future. But I think it's going to be very close. I don't think they're going to be easy wins for those other teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if Portland goes and into that slot in 7 or 8. But Kawhi Leonard's healthy. That to me is something. That to me is something where he could go off for a couple 40-point games. I think he can make things interesting. Now, I think he'll run out of gas in a first-round series because it's going to be Kawhi against the world, but I do think that Kawhi in the play-ins could be something.
For sure. I mean, I'm in the boat where any 3 of these – now, if Golden State made it, it would surprise me. They just don't have the horses to me. But if any of these –
outside of Curry, I just don't see much there.
But if any of these 3 teams made it in any order, whatever, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I think these are all relatively similarly talented teams. I think Portland's the deepest, but they have the worst leading man. I think that's easy to say, as good as Avdi is. Like, Booker's clearly a level ahead of him, and so is Kawhi, obviously. But I think the second banana, things like that, are what Garland has been pretty good since he got to the Clippers, but I just think that we'll see with Garland. I mean, there's just something about Garland that Cleveland clearly felt this way. There's just a sense of a nerve about Garland at all times to me, especially in the road in a big spot. So That's kind of my motivation. That's why I'd take Phoenix. The Clippers bigs just are not good. Like Brook Lopez, a great career, somehow the leading all-time scorer of any franchise. But I mean, he's just really old. And once you get like, if Mark Williams plays, which I don't even actually know his health status off the top of my head, but if he can play, Iguodaro's good. They like have bouncy athletic bigs who I just don't like. There's just nothing for Brook Lopez to do. Like he can't do anything with those guys. And Niederhauser got hurt, which is unfortunate because I thought he was rounding into a solid player. So, yeah, I'll take Phoenix, but I don't feel great about it. But I think I really do think Portland will win that 7-8 personally.
I think he is available. Mark Williams will play on Tuesday. So
yeah, so I mean, I'll take, assuming he doesn't get nicked up in that game, I'll take Portland 7, Phoenix 8.
Okay, slightly different here. I'll take Phoenix and the Clippers, but I would not be surprised with Portland. I agree with you. I would be surprised with Golden State because after Curry, it's just this team. That team is. I always talk about the Lakers' lack of depth. Yeah, Golden State. I think we saw it the other night when Golden State faced the Lakers. Yeah, that team is really hurting for depth right now at this point, and you sometimes really take advantage of the fact when you have a star player to take to cover a lot of your faults, and yeah, we see that in Golden State right now. But getting to finally what we're getting into with the Western Conference playoffs itself, it is of course Calif Poncy along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. We'll start back in the East, so that would be the 1st and the 8th seed. So you have, who has your 8th seed again? I mean, yeah, the Charlotte Hornets. I think we're both on the Charlotte Hornets. Yes. So it would be Detroit versus Charlotte on that. Your thoughts, my friend, on Detroit versus Charlotte. How many games do you see the Charlotte Hornets getting over a recovering Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons?
1. Yeah. I mean, I think that the Pistons have...
Does it remind you of Detroit, New York last season?
No. I think that Detroit, including me, I mean, they just have gotten kind of this lack of recognition all year, and they
could say lack of respect. You can say it.
Yeah, and they won 60 games, and that was with Cade Cunningham missing however many games he missed, at least 17, because he wasn't eligible for the 65 game rule. So I think that Charlotte's fun, and they're going to be really good, but they still aren't quite there, and it's not a team to me that feels like it's going to do incredibly well in this first year with playoff physicality. It's a rookie. It's Brandon Miller, who's been wearing a football pad on his shoulder all season. And LaMelo's just not a particularly physical player. And so you're basically relying on pretty remarkable shot making, which they've done. But it's everything's different in the playoffs. And so I'll take Detroit in 5, and that's not taking anything away from Charlotte. I think it'll be if I don't really subscribe to this belief, but it'll be like a close 5. I don't think Detroit will just mop the floor with them in every game, but I just think Detroit has the best player in the series. They're more physical down low. I think they'll probably win the rebounding battle there with Duren and Stewart and all the great rebounders they have. And if they can do anything to make an outside shot, because no one on Charlotte can really guard Cade particularly well. They can throw Miller on him, but good luck. And so I think that this is a pretty easy Detroit win, and an impressive season for Charlotte, but they're going to be like a fun team that I think needs to go make a couple moves this summer to really legitimize and add some depth to this exciting young lineup that's going to be heard from for quite a while, barring injury.
They'll have a couple picks in the teens to go ahead and toss at some people as far as it's concerned. I agree with you. I'd say 4 or 5 for Detroit on that one. That matchup is what I have as well. So I don't think that Charlotte's a nice little story, but I think the momentum that they lost in the last couple weeks of the season really is going to affect them. And because those were some really must-win games, and a lot of those games they came up short. And I think this is learning season for them, and whether or not they want to go ahead and continue on that upward climb with some moves, like you said, or just steady as she goes. We'll have to wait and see, but I think that this will be a nice little taste, but that taste will be very sweet and very short after a gentleman's sweep in 5 games, in my opinion, as well. Your thoughts, though, on the Boston Celtics facing off against a 7 seed. I think you had Orlando, and I think
I
I
had
had
Philly and you had Orlando,
yeah, I think we both had Orlando. So
but
with that,
I had
we
Philly. I
yo,
had
you
Philly.
had Philly. Yeah, you had Philly, I had Orlando. I'm sorry. So with that, you have Boston, Philly. Again, for me, it's all about Joel Embiid. If Joel
Yeah.
Embiid comes back, then I'm changing my picks, but I can't change the picks because it's already set in stone. So sorry, Gerald. But uh if he's there, I've obviously it changes the dynamic, and you talked about getting 2 games from them as far as the Celtics concerned, but I have Orlando in there. Orlando will throw up some defensive type feels, but they'll keep it somewhere in the low hundreds. I think they'll make it ugly at times, but ultimately the triples will fall for Boston, and I think they also get a gentleman sweep as well. And with that, an end to the very disappointing Orlando season. But your thoughts on how far a series with the Sixers can go with or without Joel Embiid?
So with Embiid, I think it's 6. And without Embiid, I think it's 5. I think that Embiid presents a particular issue for Boston because Kata's good and he's a great story and he's going to be. We'll see what they do with him contract wise. I don't think that is something that's pressing this year, but I'm sure it probably expires after next year. Because he's a good player, but he can't. I mean, he's not going to be able to do anything with Embiid if he plays. But they're likely. I mean, we just kind of have to err on the side that Embiid's not going to play and be pleasantly surprised if he does. That's kind of the story of his career. So if not, I mean, Maxi's good, and I think Maxi will have some 40-point game. He'll have to average like 35, 36 a game to make this series because you can't count on Edgecombe as a rookie. You can't count on Paul George, who's historically not been an awesome playoff performer, and I mean, is another health risk at all times. So I think Boston's clearly the better team. I don't think these first two really either one need like the higher seeds are the higher seeds for a reason. About 80 or about 99% of the time. So I mean, I think it's 5 because I'll assume Embiid's not going to play, and it'll be a good because there's not any terrific defenders on Philly. I think it'll be a good get Tatum into a playoff rhythm series where you win handily enough. He doesn't need to play a ton of minutes. So I think it's going to be a good tune-up series for Boston, where they still have to lock in and focus because Maxey is a top 15 player in this league, but I still think they're just a pretty convincing favorite and a better team.
So we will see what happens with that. Again, Celtics looking like a team that is the prohibitive favorite in the East. And again, we'll see how far this looks, and we'll go ahead and into a little bit deeper detail with the East here in a minute. But 3rd to 6th, the Knicks and the Hawks. People have talked about how the Knicks ended their season. Were they trying to, angle for the Hawks? Were they not? Was that a smart move? I still think the Knicks will win in 6. I think that the Knicks look okay. I think that a team that I think that can, in this time of rise of the playoffs of the Eastern Conference, probably look to me as the second best team by the slimmest of margins right now. Although I would not be surprised if Cleveland takes over that for me right now. But I'm going to say New York by the slightest of margins because of what they have and the experience that they have. So I'm going to say 6. It's going to be a fun little series. Atlanta presents some different dynamics. They have so many different athletes on that team, but their size with a Kongwu and not much else in the back pocket probably will allow Cat and Mitchell Robinson to roam free quite a bit. Your thoughts on a Knicks Hawks series 3-6?
I think the Knicks will win in 7 games. I think this is going to be a really good series. I think the Hawks have shown, similarly to Charlotte, like for a large portion of this isn't some little blip. Like they've been really good for a while. So we talked about the rise of Alexander Walker to where I think he's like a borderline all-star type guy in the East, like a low-level all-star type. McCollum's been really good for them. Now, I don't think that when McCollum's staring down the barrel at Jalen Brunson, I'm going to feel great about it no matter what. But still, I mean, I think he'll do what he's going to do. The swing factor in this is going to be how Jalen Johnson handles the playoffs because Jalen Johnson's clearly the Hawks' best player. We all know. He's this weird, big. There's not a ton of players left like Jalen Johnson. Like he's this big point forward, not a good outside shooter, weird player who's hard to guard just because there's not that many like him. But the reason I think I will take the Knicks, despite having some skepticism here, just because the just doesn't feel right. Their starting lineup, the numbers on like their starting lineup just isn't good in terms of not in terms of like the players, in terms of the numbers, the on-offs, all the advanced stats. It just hasn't been a good lineup all season, so they have to figure that out. We've seen in past years that Mitchell Robinson's offensive rebounding is like this kind of secret nuclear weapon they have that he's such an injury risk they kind of don't necessarily abuse in the regular season like they do in the playoffs, where they'll go double bigs, and that's what could be to Atlanta's detriment in this series. But
that's where I'm calling it, is right there.
And I don't think that's wrong. And that's what could make this a 6 or 5 game series, is if Brunson's clearly the best player in the series. Towns is probably the second best player in the series. Jalen Johnson's the third, I think, but Anunoby might be the fourth best player. So this is almost just like a vibes pick, because I think Atlanta has been playing at such a high level, and New York has just kind of been floating along like, oh, well, we have the talent. We're here for the playoffs, whatever. And it just hasn't felt great all season, and they're a weird team, and their starting lineups numbers aren't good, like I said. So I'll take New York in 7 with the caveat that I don't think Atlanta will win, or I don't really have a great feel that Atlanta can win this series, which is odd for any 7-game series. But New York just feels like a team that's going to be susceptible to drop some games they shouldn't to me. And Atlanta feels like a team that's going to be able to kind of scrape those games out with weird, unorthodox late game scoring. So I'll take New York in 7, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was done quicker than that.
So we have that done with 3 through 6 as far as 3-6 matchup right there. A very close series, I think, for both you and I are coming out of that. And the 4-5 between Cleveland and Toronto. Again, the lack of maneuvering as far as the end of the season, who wanted who and whatnot, is always interesting to see. But it worked out. So Cleveland played I don't want to say they were a surprising Toronto team, but on paper, it just doesn't look like much. But they ended up, 10 games above 500, which I think
pretty
is
good all season.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But it's right where they've been all season. Is they got to that point and they flatlined, and they just stayed at that level relatively. They've got a lot of guys on Toronto. But is Scotty Barnes going to be your best player in a playoff series? I just don't think so. Brandon Ingram, who was the player of the week going in, I just don't have faith in, quite honestly. I know he's a former Laker or whatnot. He's had moments where he could have stepped up for New Orleans, and he didn't. And I just don't know if he'll do that here. But your thoughts in a matchup against Cleveland, a team that had a terrible first half, a better second half, but is there still more room to grow in Cleveland?
I'll take Cleveland in 5.
Really?
I think this could go to, like, I did my NBA.com bracket in case I get it perfect and win $1 million. I'll throw my hat in the ring. But I picked Cleveland in 6 on that. But
if we do that, you'll do the show from your new yacht. Is that correct? In Iowa? There you go.
I'll still, the money won't change me. I'll still be here. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. Going down Main Street in your yacht.
Yeah. But but I'll change it to Cleveland in 5. I just think the record against good teams is pretty concerning for Toronto this year. I don't know the exact stat off the top of my head, but I know it's something pretty crazy. It's like 2-24 against teams with a winning percentage above whatever, seed above whatever. I don't know the exact stat off my head, but it's something like that. That's really like they just don't do well against these super talented teams, and Cleveland's just more talented. I think Cleveland, Mitchell's the best player in the series by a mile, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest Scotty Barnes guy, admittedly, and I'm sure I somewhat undervalue him, but I just think Mitchell's pretty clearly the best player by at least a tier or two. And then I honestly think Mobley and Barnes are really kind of on a similar level. And then that's like not counting Harden, has his playoff warts, but they're properly stated and a bit overstated, because a lot of those, like, well, who's going to beat Golden State? But he's also had his blunders. So I don't know. I think he'll be fine maybe in the secondary offensive role instead of being the guy like he has been in a lot of those moments. I just think Cleveland has a lot more good players, or high end players, and Toronto's talented. They do have a lot of guys, like you said, but the big advantage between that is Mobley and Allen against like Pirtle and Murray Boyles. Like I just think that it's and Mamushkavili. Like I just think Cleveland's big advantage should be they should dominate the glass. They should be able to get where they want because Scotty Barnes can only guard one person, and then you're looking at defensive liability in Ingram. So I'll take Cleveland in 5. And it's a weird Cleveland team that I can see making the finals because they have that much talent, and I can see them. I can see the world where they lose this series just because of what they've done, but I obviously don't think it's going to happen. I just picked them to win in 5. But if you tell me that Harden goes off the rails and Allen and Mobley can't really play together and Toronto just kind of scraps their way and, oh my God, we're in game 7, that kind of checks out with Cleveland's playoff track record over in this Mitchell era, which I think is an unfair dictation on, or not dictation, an unfair stigma that Mitchell's picked up, because I think Mitchell usually honestly shows up and plays well in the playoffs, but the rest of his teams don't necessarily do that. So, but that said, I'll go with what my mind tells me here, and just Cleveland's just better, and I'll take Cleveland in 5.
Cleveland's an X factor team for me.
I agree.
Yeah. Because, like you said, if Mitchell plays like playoff Mitchell from earlier this decade, if James Harden doesn't, play like the guy that hides in one game and then plays well the next, but hides in the next game and has that rep forevermore as far as a failure in the playoffs, the pressure is not on him. Mitchell is the top player at this point in time. If Mobley can step up to be finally the player so many people have thought he could be for at least a month period, then this is a team that, like you said, can go to the finals. I just don't have faith in that. No. I don't have faith that the team can do that. But they have, like you said, more top-end talent than maybe even Boston, because the fact that they have more guys capable of having a playoff-centric game or a playoff-transcending game. Even Jared Allen, Jared Allen has gotten the Ivica Zubac effect from having Harden there, as far as his game being elevated because of it. And that's not an accident. That is Harden. Harden loves to have a rim rolling big guy attached to him. And obviously there's a lot to that. And getting Max Strus back late in the year, if he can stay on the court and can stay healthy, he is healthy. I thought he got injured again.
I'm pretty sure he's
back.
Okay. I think so.
Okay. Max Strus can fling it up from 3, and if he gets hot, he can fling it with the best of them. So they have the top end talent to go into the finals, like you said. But have they ever put it all together? And I'd have to say no. And I do think that they get through this series because Toronto just doesn't have enough that I think that can go ahead and fend off Cleveland. And I think 5. I think the more that I think about it, I was thinking 6, but I think 5 is what's going to be. But we may readjust our thinking because I don't think Cleveland is going to be our pick to go into the finals. But I wouldn't be surprised if 2 weeks from now we're saying that they just might. We'll see what happens.
They're just going to have to prove it to me against Boston or New York or Detroit. Like they're just going to have to. I mean, until then, they could sweep Toronto. Mitchell could average 37, 10, and 4, and Harden could put in 25 and 11. And I'm just still going to be like, well, do it against Detroit, do it against Boston. Yeah, and they've earned that. Like that sucks. It's an unfair position to put a team in, but they've put themselves there. So much talent. No one's ever denied the talent of them or New York or any of those teams that people are kind of doubtful of. But there's just a lot to be said for we've seen you do it, and that's where I think Boston. That's why I think they do have this edge over all the teams in the East. So, yeah, but Cleveland's Cleveland. We'll see. They're going to have to prove it to me in the second round more than the first.
So if that's the case, you've got Detroit going into the second round of the playoffs. They're going to meet up against Cleveland and then New York and Boston. Again, think that you and I are in alignment on that. So where do we go from here with those two matchups, and who comes out of it heading into the finals?
So I think both these are 7-gamers. I think this second round of the playoffs, outside of whoever OKC plays, I think is going to be all just awesome. Like, this is what we wait all year and watch the Wizards and the Jazz for. Like, these are those games that we're kind of slaving through all those to finally get to these. So I'll take this is a real throw up for me. I'll take Cleveland in 7 over Detroit. Despite what I just said, they've been there, and they've been there. I trust Mitchell in the playoffs, and I don't trust literally anyone else.
He hasn't been as good in the playoffs in recent years as he was really like he was in the first years.
Yeah, but I mean, those Utah years were crazy. Obviously, like his rookie year was just a nuts performance for a rookie, but I trust him. Like, I think it's been a team that it has a lot of good players, but it doesn't, in my opinion, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, Mitchell, we're in this era where got like an SGA or a Luka or those are really the two best examples, or even an Edwards. Like, these aren't point guards historically. Like, you're not looking at John Stockton when you see SGA or Luka or an Edwards, but they're de facto the point guard of their teams. They take the ball up, they have high usage. Mitchell just has never really been able to be in a spot like that other than Utah. And then in Utah, like he just had a bunch of kind of playoff fallers around him. I mean, frankly, in those teams, while Rudy, he did enough to elevate the offense to be a really high level in the regular season, and Rudy single-handedly was able to elevate the defense to being elite in the regular season. But when it came down to, like, I need someone else's help to get me a bucket, I just don't think he's ever had that guy. And then, like, Garland's just a weird fit with him because Garland is one of those point guards. Garland's kind of in that Halliburton-y type of mold where it's like he does need the ball and he likes to get his teammates involved, but it's hard to be a two-guard off of that. What you'll notice with a lot of the all-time two guards that you see, whether that's Wade, Kobe, Jordan, if you now want to count in Luka and SGA in those, because I think historically Luka's more of a point guard than SGA is. I think SGA if he's in any other era, SGA is just a two guard, I think. But I mean, if you look at those guys, they never really played with a super ball, like a point guard who needed the ball a lot because they need the ball in their hands. And I think that's the type of talent that not Kobe, MJ, not those guys, but I think in terms of just the score, like I think Mitchell can flirt with the numbers of those guys in moments. And he's just never really had that chance with any type of supporting cast around him. So I've always been a big Mitchell defender, and I'll continue to be. I just think that he's one of the 10 best players in the league, and no one ever puts him in there because he's kind of always been in a forgettable market on forgettable teams that always have regular season success but always underwhelm. And part of that's him, but part of that's been a surrounding cast. And so this is the year, because they're playing such an inexperienced Detroit team that is even more, I think, devout of secondaries, because Harden's a good secondary scorer, of course, but he also is another, I think that's a weird fit for Mitchell. And I think they could do better than that long-term if he's who they want to build around. I think that this is the year because Detroit's even more in need of kind of someone else to score the ball other than Cade Cunningham. I'll give them the edge in 7 games, but I don't feel the least bit good about, not at all, in that one. What are your thoughts on that series?
Again, if Cleveland brings it all together, they could be a team again that goes to the finals. Do you have enough faith in where it goes? Against Detroit, I think that Cade Cunningham, it's such a Cade Cunningham reliant team in Detroit, and that's going to be a problem they need to rectify in the offseason. And I think that it's going to stop right here. I think that Cleveland will not get past my next team that I'm going to go ahead and talk about, but I do think that they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think, like you said, I think the Harden was a key acquisition. I know Harden is not a playoff elite performer. He will always be known as a guy who disappears when it matters the most, but not everything is on him. He is not the guy that needs to be. He is just added onto this mix. And if Mobley steps up, they will get to the finals. If Mobley is just okay, he's okay, gives you 17 and 10, that type of deal, then I think that that's good enough to get them by 1 round. It's good enough to get them by 2 rounds, but it won't get them by a Eastern Conference Finals. I think Mobley has to step it up. And if he and Mitchell, because Mitchell's going to be taking 20, 25 shots a game.
Yeah.
He is going to be their primary source of offense. And with a dash of Harden here and there, and if you do it right, and if you coach it right, and if you scheme it right, you will be able to go a long way with that duo. But I do think that it is enough for what we're seeing with Detroit. I just don't know how that backcourt guards Cade Cunningham. That's the thing that I have pause on. I think it's going 7, but I do think Cleveland is going to go ahead and end up winning it.
Yeah, I agree. I just think this is Cleveland's ceiling is about Mobley. It always has been. It always will be until they have a different iteration of their team, because in theory, he should be the super additive winning player, kind of in that Wemby, Chet Holmgren mold, where this is a guy who can space the floor and do a lot for you on offense, and he's an A+ rim protector. I mean, he won Defensive Player of the Year last season. And he just kind of always a little underwhelming. He just that's just kind of feels like what Cleveland is as a team in this era that he's been there, where it's like he's good and he won a Defensive Player of the Year, just like Cleveland won 64 games last season, but you just always expect a bit more. And so, I mean, if he doesn't ever get over that, then Cleveland would never get over that. And I just think that Allen and Duren, I'm sure, will be going at each other. They're just two big physical maulers down low. And I mean, that's going to, like, Mobley's going to be going against a smaller guy like that, whether that's, I imagine they throw Thompson on Mitchell, and probably Cade on Harden. And then, I mean, that lead, like, you're going to have a Tobias Harris, or not that Isaiah Stewart's not a great defensive player, but I mean, Mobley's 7'7", and I think Stewart's 6'8". So I mean, he's going to be bigger. There's no reason he should not be an aggressor in this series. If he is, then I agree. Like, they have the highest ceiling. They have the highest ceiling of anyone in the East. I think that's pretty irrevocable, because they have, even Boston, like, they have 3 guys who at times in their careers have been considered for All NBA. Mobley's probably never been considered for more than a second team, but I mean, Harden is still really good. Mitchell might make first team this year if Luke is deemed ineligible. Like, and so can you rise up and become that All NBA second team guy? And if they can beat anyone in the East, and maybe anyone in the league, but definitely anyone in the East. But unfortunately for them, I have Boston beating New York in this other one in 7, kind of getting some comeuppance for last year. And now last year, even before Tatum got hurt, New York was going to win that series. They were on the verge of going up 3-1. They were just the better team. They did a really good job, and this is the brilliance of having one of these amazing lead guards like Brunson. Is they'd go down big and they'd just slowly but surely nick at the lead, and then all of a sudden they'd win. That happened twice in that series. And so I think Boston doesn't make those same mistakes again. I almost went Boston in 6, but I'll go Boston in 7, just out of respect for the Knicks' talent, what they've shown in the playoffs the last 2 years. But I do think Boston takes this in 7, and then I think they beat Cleveland in 6 and go to the finals. That's my take on what will happen in the East.
I think I agree with you on that, except with Boston. I think it goes 7. Boston, Cleveland. I think it goes 7 in Boston and Cleveland, but I agree with you. And New York, I think, had every advantage to go ahead and be the top team in the East, but they have underwhelmed for a great part of it. And just seemingly, I think if Cat doesn't have a monumental series each and every time out, he is going to get vilified by the New York fans for it, and that's going to get in his head at some point in time, as it has already. So we'll see. I mean, Brunson is going to have a lot of the weight on his shoulders, especially in a series against Boston. So we'll have to wait and see. But I agree with you. I think it'll be Boston going into the finals, much to my chagrin. But Cleveland, I would not be surprised if they put it all together, and if they put 12 games together before they get to finals, where they can look really where you're thinking, hey, they might have a chance against somebody against the West. But again, a lot of that relies on Evan Mobley, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say that if Boston goes on this run, especially in my version of things when Philly beats Orlando and maybe Embiid comes back for the second half of that series. We're going to learn a lot about Queta if Boston goes through, because that's a murderer's row of Embiid if he plays at all, and then you're going and you're going against Karl Towns and Mitchell Robinson, who are very different, both very good at what they do. And then you'd be going against Allen Mobley. And so if he can make it through those three, the price tag is going to go up on Queta, and it should, because if you can go through those three, and because you're just it's really hard to win, even if you're the better team. I mean, I still to this day think that 2 years ago against Dallas, OKC I think was better than Dallas, but the rebounding was so dominant, and the Dallas was so dominant on the glass when Holmgren was the only big, that it overcame it, and they were out physical, they were outsized. And frankly, like on paper, Boston is out physical and outsized at the center position all three of the series in my path. I think Queta's right there with Wendell Carter and whoever is a big for Orlando. But if they go through Philly, New York, and Cleveland, they've proven like they can overcome against really good teams. I just have to imagine is going to be a rebounding disadvantage. Now, Tatum's an elite rebounder, and he seems to have really just picked up where he left off with that skill. He's always been an elite rebounder because he's one of these guys who is just so big. Like you don't think about him that way because he's not a center and he's perimeter based, but he's really like, I feel like there's different versions of 6'8", 6'9". He's a big 6'9". Like he gets a lot of rebounds. He's big. He has wide shoulders. So I think he'll help with the rebounding in any of these matchups. But if they can get through this and not get slaughtered on the glass, then they can compete with OKC, Denver, San Antonio, whoever comes out of the West. They can go toe to toe with them, I think.
So we'll see what happens, but I think both you and I right now have Boston heading into the finals. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in the East. I think it will be a bloodbath, however it may be. Not quite the bloodbath, though. I think even more blood will be shed in the West when it starts off. For me, I think for first and 8th seed, I think that was the Clippers heading into that. I think whether it's Portland, Phoenix, whether it's Golden State or the Clippers, doesn't matter. I think it's a sweep for OKC. If they get one, I think that's going to be a small victory, but I think OKC will be ready for whatever's happening. They're healthy. Their depth is there. And I don't expect anything different from OKC in the first round as the defending champions.
No, I mean, OKC is uniquely built to not drop games to teams that they just have more talent than. They're almost like a college team, like how Michigan was or how Arizona was, where when they played a team they were just more talented than, they just had no chance because of how overwhelmingly physical, powerful, and consistent they were. OKC is similar. So I have Phoenix in that spot. I think Phoenix is the most likely of any of those teams to maybe get a game off them. But I think it's a sweep. I think it's an easy sweep for OKC, to be honest, no matter who it is. Defense just always travels, and you have to have an elite. You basically have to have Jokic or Luka, historically speaking, against this OKC group to be able to function offensively, or Halliburton and have one of the weirder offenses we've seen in recent memory in the Pacers. Like those are kind of the options. So none of these teams have that. In mind, Phoenix, as good as Booker is, like throw Dort, throw Caruso, throw Case and Wallace, even throw J-Dub on Booker. Like I just don't. OKC is deeper than anyone in the league. Like if you have one perimeter guy, good luck. Like they just have 4, 5, 6 guys they can throw at him that are good, and they're all slightly different. So I think it's a sweep for OKC no matter who it is. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I just think they're so well built to dominate worse teams in a pretty unique way, and so I think that'll continue. They've swept in the first round the last 2 years, and I think this is right now. OKC's season was interesting because they started off so good at 23-1. Then they had that middle stretch where SGA got hurt, and Hartenstein missed a lot of time. Caruso missed a lot of time. AJ Mitchell missed a lot of time. Jalen Williams was still out. They went 18-13. Then they got healthy to end the season, and they went when they were playing their guys 23-2. So they bookended their seasons at 47-3, and that's kind of when we saw the most complete versions of OKC. And the first half of the season, you can point to the schedule. The second half of the season, they were playing everybody They played everybody in that stretch and just beat everybody other than San Antonio. So I think that this OKC team's playing the best they've played all season, and I don't see any way that any of these teams win more than one game at most. And it would be like last year, OKC blew a couple games on buzzer beaters. I think it'd have to be something like that.
San Antonio comes in has a second seed. You have I have Phoenix as my 7th seed. You had Portland as your 7th seed on that. What are your thoughts on that? I think if Phoenix matches up against San Antonio, I don't expect much more. I say they get 1.
Yeah.
Do you see Portland being a little bit feistier if they meet up against San Antonio?
No, I think it's 5 or 4. I mean, I'll say 5, just because I think sweeps really aren't that common. The only reason I'm giving one to OKC is because they've done it the last 2 years, or else I always lean 5 games just because 3-point variance and things like that happen in the modern NBA. So I'll say 5. I don't think there's any chance that any team that isn't Boston or Denver beats OKC or San Antonio, either one. I think that you have to be so good and so sound and so experienced to deal with what these teams throw at you. And frankly, like the type of player Avdia is, which is he is unlike some of the guys who get the stigma. Avdia at this stage of his career, because he hasn't developed a good outside shot yet, he's pretty dependent upon getting to the line right now, and that's fine. And I don't hate him for it or think he's a bad watch or anything, but I mean, he's dependent upon free throws right now. He has a pretty high percentage of his points for free throws. So and that's going to, like, Wemby doesn't foul because he doesn't really need to touch you. Like, he just kind of can reach up, and Avdia does so much of his work at the rim. So I'll say that Portland gets a game because maybe they have a game like they did against Denver where they made like 25 threes. But if it's a sweep, that's not going to surprise me at all. I think these two teams both are good enough. I think that the aspect of having a really good floor is about your defense. And OKC and San Antonio are both just so elite defensively that it's hard for me to see one of these teams that's lesser in terms of talent getting a win.
So with that, we move on to a very intriguing matchup, Denver and Minnesota. Minnesota had this matchup last year, the 3-6 matchup, and against the Lakers, and obviously it was very advantageous for them. I know that there was some criticism thrown Denver's way. I don't know why, because they stay out of the Oklahoma City bracket for another round. So I don't get why that is, but okay. I know that there was the fact that Minnesota took it as a slight that that Denver wants to play them instead of going ahead and playing the Rockets. I think it's more about staying away from Oklahoma City for as long as you can. So with that, it is Denver, Minnesota, but this Minnesota team, they've gone to the Western Conference Finals 2 straight times. I just don't see how they're going to do it this time around. They just don't seem to have the same je ne sais quoi. They don't have the same type of depth. They don't, moxie, whatever you want to say. It just, Anthony Edwards just does not look like he has a supporting cast that's going to be capable of lifting them through 2 rounds this time around. I'm going to say Denver in 6.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same. Last year's Minnesota run was kind of just like they played that Lakers team that just wasn't. I mean, that just wasn't, that it was with the Luka trade happened midseason. It wasn't deep. Like, that just wasn't that good of a team that year. And then Curry gets hurt in game 1. And so, I mean, Minnesota really had a pretty, I'll say easy path to the conference finals. And then they really got beat pretty handily by OKC. So I think last year's team is a bit of like we look at the result and not necessarily the process of how they got there in terms of giving them a ton of credit. Like 2 years in a row, it's hard to win 2 rounds, but they really got pretty easy opponents for those 2 rounds. But 2 years ago, they beat Denver at full strength, coming off of a championship, and that's what really the idea of Minnesota is built upon in my mind, is that series. Where it's like they've shown they went into Denver, came back from 20 points, won in Game 7. That's impressive, and that gives them a puncher's chance in this. But I'm on the same wavelength. I think it's 6. Cam Johnson's really rounded into form late in this season. Jamal Murray's been great all year. Jokic is Jokic. Gordon looks back healthy. They're better than they've been all year. They showed that late in the season against San Antonio in that crazy game. So I'll take Denver in 6 in a hard fought 6. I think Edwards is such a playoff riser. He's proven that so far in this against Denver, especially. So I think it'll be a fun series still, but I'd be pretty shocked if Minnesota won. And I didn't necessarily interpret that. I think Denver did everything in their power to drop those games against OKC and San Antonio, and then they just kind of won both. So I think the way I have interpreted it is like Minnesota, I don't think they wanted any part. I think they said Denver and OKC, or OKC and San Antonio, sorry, either one, it's going to be tough. But we'd much rather play Houston in the first round than the Timberwolves. And so I think really they were trying to duck Minnesota. That's my opinion. And it just kind of didn't work out for them. They did everything in their power. They played none of their guys for absolutely no reason. They played Jokic 18 minutes, and then he didn't even come back out. I was watching that game closely because OKC's second round opponent, obviously, and he didn't even come out from halftime. He wasn't even on the bench. He's just like, I'm good. Just go out there and I'll see you after the game. I didn't like how they handled it. I just think that shows I've never been a fan of that. I don't feel like it works all that often. We all remember the most famous one is that Clippers team that tried to duck the Lakers and saw how that worked out. So, it should instill some confidence in Minnesota because I think it's pretty clear that they want – because it doesn't make any sense like we're trying to duck San Antonio's side to go to OKC side. That's not – no one would do that at this point. So, especially those teams, like they've had success against San Antonio and they didn't beat OKC. OKC was 3-0 in real games against them. So I think they're trying to duck Minnesota, and I'm sure Anthony Edwards is going to think he's better than anyone. He's going to think he's better than Jokic. He's going to think he's better than Wemby. He's going to think he's better than Shea. He's going to think he's better than prime Michael Jordan. It doesn't matter who he's playing. So I'll give him a shot because Edwards is that special, I think, and they've proven to be able to deal with Denver in the past, but I still think it's Denver in 6.
You're right. They did try to as far as the way they sat everybody down on that final game, and yet they still managed to win. So you could say that they were trying to avoid playing Minnesota and didn't just do a good job of it. So yeah. I still think that's going to lead to a Denver series win.
Yeah, me too.
Despite how Edwards might play in the series. But the series I think a lot of people are looking at and hoping for somebody to come back. We'll see what happens. It is the Houston Rockets versus the Los Angeles Lakers. 4 or 5 matchup. I'm going to say this. Should we talk about if one or two of the Lakers players come back or without? I don't know how you want to approach this. So I want to hear your thoughts on this and how it's approached, because as of this recording, the latest report is that Luka will be back in the United States by Friday. He'll have one more consultation or one more treatment in Spain before heading back to the United States by Friday. Does that mean he's going to play on Saturday? I would think certainly not. But does that mean he might play at some point in time in the series? That's certainly a possibility. And with Austin Reeves' oblique injury, which is believed to be the more serious of the two injuries, I would say not for him. But again, he played on it after he hurt it in that Oklahoma City game. So I don't know. I'm going to assume that at some point one or both of those players will try to come back. The thing is, will it be a matchup in as far as I'm concerned? Will the Lakers be able to hold out until that time comes around?
I'll take Houston in 6 in this, with the caveat that if those guys I think if they get back, it'll be like game 4. Like I just don't see any way with the injury timelines that were reported when they got hurt that who knows what they're doing to Luka over there. I mean, God knows, don't drug test him before the playoffs.
Don't drug test him.
But I mean, so I don't know what they're trying to do. I mean,
I can see somebody, an NBA official, right as soon as he gets off at LAX, right there with a cup and says, go ahead, provide me a sample. Please.
Yeah, I mean, it's random, but I mean, if there's ever a time,
it's sure as hell not random. That's for sure.
If there's ever a time, I mean, if he plays like. I don't see any realistic chance of game 1, but if he plays in game 2 or even game 3, I think is 90% of Luka. I think LA is better, and I think they'll win in 7 if he's back. I don't even necessarily think they need Reeves back if he plays. I've been pretty loudly off the Houston bandwagon on this show. They ended the season really well, but I still am not necessarily thinking that they're a super high quality team. They just have been weird all season. They still don't have a point guard, and they don't really have one of those guards I was talking about with the Shays and the Lucas and the Ants.
Steven Adams' injury hurts them a lot.
Because and that's why at the beginning of the season, just looking at an OKC matchup, honestly, it was like that's kind of I never thought Houston would beat OKC, but like I think it was tough because the one thing you can kind of get OKC on every once in a while is their rebounding. Like you can out rebound, you can get down low against them. And Adams, that he was for a player that makes whatever he makes $10 million a year, and they traded a second round pick for. He's their superpower when he plays. When they don't have him, they're just not the same. And that's on top of Van Vliet. So I think that it's pretty unlikely that Luka comes back before game 4 or game 5. So I'll take Houston in 6 with the caveat that if he plays game 2, game 3, I think LA is the better team and will win the series.
The Lakers take 2 at home. I think they'll win in 7. But I think they have to win.
I just don't know how they'd win with only LeBron against this Houston team.
I think it would have to be JJ coming up with another scheming defense that befuddles Houston. I mean, we go back to those 2 games in Houston where basically they won, and you got to give JJ credit for winning those games because he provided the defense, the trapping defense on Kevin Durant. Now, mind you, they didn't have Sengun in both those games. They only had him in one of those games, but again, I think if the Lakers take 2 in LA, I think that they will win in 7 games because that's just enough time to go ahead and get one of those 2 guys back to go ahead and really give your team a big boost in game, like you said, 5, 6, or 7, as far as that's concerned. But if the Lakers split or the Lakers lose 2 in LA, it's not going to be, we're going to have some miserable people here on the channel. I'll just leave it at that. But I think if the Lakers can win both in LA and surprise, which is a possibility because you said Houston is weird. Mm-hmm. And if they get weird, which we've seen with Kevin Durant teams before,
yes,
then that's a possibility. And I'll leave it at that. But and then like I said, this is going to be a very hard series to predict, because it's all over the place and we don't know if the Lakers are going to get a back end of the series boost or not. We'll have to wait and see. But I still think if the Lakers do get that boost later in the series and they do win 2 at home, I think they can win in 7.
Yeah, I think if the Lakers start off 2-0, they'll win the series, I think. I just don't think – I personally don't – I don't see a path to that with the current roster. But – so, I mean, I'll take Houston, just erring on the side of caution. But again, like if they get Luka back, if they get Reeves, I think they'd have to get Luka back. But I mean, if they get Reeves back, I think it maybe go Houston in 7. If they get Luka back, I think the Lakers are the better team. But I'll err on the side of caution because I think the Lakers should err on the side of caution. Like, I get it. It's the playoffs. You always want to win. But can we just look ourselves in the mirror and like, you're going to
go to Europe? Just for
no, okay, I know.
I'm going to get back and ready for next summer.
No, I know, and you're totally right. And I'm not saying they should do this or they will do this. I'm saying I think they should do this. Like, are you going to come back? Are you going to push Luka on? I mean, we've seen. I mean, I brought this up last week. Like, Aaron Gordon took a full season to get healthy after he pushed his hamstring last year. And Peyton Watson and Jalen Williams, like they missed half the season with hamstring injuries because they came back too early and tried to push them. So. I just err on the side of caution because in reality, it's like even if you somehow beat Houston a long, hard, physical series, your reward is going and playing a most likely fresh as a daisy OKC team. Like we've seen what happens in these Lakers OKC game. This is not the team that's going to beat OKC. So I just play it really safe. I don't see any reason to risk long-term injury, but you're right. Like they're not spending God knows how much money on this unknown stem cell, I'm assuming, based treatment with Luka to not have him come back. So he will, and I just don't think it's necessarily the smartest thing. But if he comes back, it opens the door for anything in this first round. So that said, I mean, like I've said a few times here, I'm still just going to go on the side of caution and say Houston in 6.
So you have Houston and OKC against Denver and San Antonio. That Denver-San Antonio series will be a tasty one, I have a feeling. I think Wemby is the key to the playoffs. I think if he steps up now, and this guy is not going to be shell-shocked or by the limelight, I I really think San Antonio has a chance against any team, and that includes OKC. I don't take the stuff that happened in December for granted, but I also don't put as much stock into it. It's a given that they're going to beat OKC for sure.
Yeah.
OKC should be the favorite going into that series, but if Wembanyama goes 40, 15, and 3 or 4 blocks each, averages that over the course of a series, they are liable to beat anyone
Yeah.
there,
Sure.
and that's the thing. So the thing is, what do you do? And teams just how do you scheme Wembanyama? Wembanyama, the only best defense against Wembanyama is Wembanyama himself, as if he gets 2-3 happy or he does those turnarounds, which I know San Antonio fans scratch their head on sometimes. That if he makes his shots more difficult than they need to be for a 7'7" guy, that's a problem. But if he plays under control and he plays lights out, they could go a long way. I do think they defeat Denver in a series, and I think it's going San Antonio, OKC, but I do think OKC in the long run will find just enough. I think OKC San Antonio is the title series the de facto title series in my mind, and I think that OKC will get by in 7 into the finals.
So I've gone back and forth with this. Yesterday, I thought San Antonio. Today, I thought Denver. And I'm going to go Denver in 7. I'm just a really big proprietor of you just got to live it a time or two before you can go and win and beat a team like Denver. Denver took OKC to the very brink last year, and Denver was worse. And I think as good as the Spurs teams was, I think last year's OKC team, I think most of us would say it was better than this year's San Antonio team. Now, going forward, that's not what I'm saying, but just in terms of last year's OKC team versus this year's San Antonio team. And I think Denver's better. So I'll take Denver in 7, but it's like 51-49 again. Like nothing would shock me in this. I think it's going to be crazy. One of the better second round series we've seen. You got to worry about the health of Denver. Gordon just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Watson just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And you're going to need every guy in your rotation if you're a team like Denver against San Antonio. Like you can't lose. You're going to need those 9 points and 10 minutes of really good defense that Watson gives you or whatever he ends up providing that game. So I'll take Denver in 7, assuming health. I think OKC will beat Houston in 5. And then I'll take OKC in 6 over Denver. I think truly now I don't have a perfectly healthy view of OKC. Like I watch them 9,000 times more than I watch any other team. I see the positives way more than I see the negatives, of course. But to me, Jalen Williams has kind of been slightly forgotten, which is understandable. He didn't play all season. I get it. But he's really looked like himself. But when he's played the last month of the season, the 3-pointer isn't necessarily there, but it's not necessarily an efficiency thing as much as he's just not looking for it. So that could be a concern. Maybe he's just not quite confident in it and isn't ever going to get back to shooting it this year. But my guess is his volume will probably get back to about 75% of where it was last season, give or take. And if that's the case and he keeps playing well, I just don't think anyone can mess with this OKC team. And I think they've shown that. In those San Antonio games, they are relevant. They were big, especially the NBA Cup. Like those were big moments. Both teams wanted to win. OKC can go cold, and San Antonio can run hot. But OKC really did not shoot well in 3 of those 4 losses. In another one of those losses, they didn't have any of their players. So I just think you can look at those, and a lot of them do have outlierish stuff in them. No, not that they're complete outliers, because they aren't. And San Antonio, Wemby provides a unique challenge to any team. Obviously, we haven't seen a guy like this ever, but specifically with how SGA plays, he's so paint touches is so key to how the whole OKC offense moves. So if SGA can't get efficient or get to the line on Wemby, it complicates things. But I don't think it's even going to get there. So I think Denver, I just think somehow Jokic has had success against Wemby statistically. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's a miracle worker, and he is. And I just think OKC after last year is going to have a confidence against Denver that they didn't have last year. Like they really, if you remember back to that series, the way Denver really stymied OKC was they threw the zone at them, and OKC could not figure out the zone because their role player shooters at the time just couldn't make a shot, and SGA didn't quite know how to solve it yet. And this year, teams have thrown zone at them after the Thunder went through that, and they're like, cool, man. They just fry the zone. So Denver can try it, and I don't think it'll work. OKC's 3-0 against real Denver this season. Again, regular season matchup. It's whatever, but most of those games felt pretty big. It's not like guys were shitting players until the last game when they both sat everyone. So I'll take OKC in 6. And then in the finals, I'll take OKC in 6 again over Boston. I don't – part of me's homerish with this, of course. I also just think OKC is the best team. I just think that SGA might be the best player in the world right now. Now, that might be brief before Wemby takes it over as early as now or next season, but I think right now he's the best player in the world, despite how great Jokic has been down the stretch again. And the defense is always going to be there. Chet Holmgren's had an incredibly underrated season. Most importantly, Lou Dort, who I know, like outside fans, everyone who's not a Thunder fan should hate Lou Dort. I fully get it. I don't run from that. I understand the dynamic. I get everything. But he is so streaky where for a lot of the season, he just wasn't hitting his shot. In the last month or so, he's had his best month from 3 of the season. And OKC doesn't beat Denver last year without Dort. And so my guess is that series will have a game or two that comes down to no one probably watched the horrible tank fest that was OKC Denver on Friday. But Dort played, and again, rightfully, those fans hate Lou Dort and boo him like he's Kevin Durant in OKC whenever he touches the ball every time. So my guess is that series will have a game or two come down to Lou Dort hitting an open 3 with a whole entire arena booing down on him, or him missing it, and maybe Denver gets to 7 or maybe even wins, because I think Denver is good enough to win any series. But I'll take OKC over Denver, and I think that's really the finals. And then I'll take OKC in 6 over Boston, but I think it's honestly going to be, if it gets there, I think it'll be like a lopsided 6. I just think OKC is the best team other than Denver and San Antonio can punch with them. And as good as Boston is, I just don't think they have the talent horses to compete with those teams. I mean, all respect to Baylor Shireman and Kada, I just don't think they're on the level of a Holmgren or a Jokic. I don't know how you're going to compete with those guys.
If the Lakers were fully healthy, I think that they would get 6 out of a matchup with OKC. But I think that's just a 6 right there. Since they're not going to be healthy, meaning up against OKC, I don't see that far of a series with them. So with that, I think that OKC will have relatively easy trekking into the Western Conference Finals, where they'll meet up against San Antonio, in my opinion. And again, if Wemby has historic numbers, which he could do, then that's the only thing I think that can defeat OKC in this season. If not, then I don't see even a Jokic-led Denver team, because they've already met up against the Jokic-led Denver team, and Jokic has had video game numbers, and they've still beat Denver on that. So I think that the only way and the only dynamic of OKC not repeating is if Wemby has a truly remarkable Victor Wembanyama step up into the limelight type setting, which he can have if given the opportunity. This is why they babied him for 25 minutes a game throughout most of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's just going to be interesting from an all-around NBA perspective if he's ready for that, because it's not a slight to Wemby.
You talk to him, and he tells you he's ready.
Yeah, and he very well could be. I just think looking back at history, like the all-time greats, like Jordan wasn't ready yet against the Pistons, and Magic wasn't ready yet in the tragic Johnson series. Like I just think
7-7, so that might be something a little bit different.
It is, and he's different, definitely, of course. But I just think
I didn't say, and I'm not trying to allude he's better than Jordan. Let's not get that. Let's not get this twisted.
He's just different. He's like
it's just the fact he is 7-7 and can take advantage of it in a series. That's I'll put that in perspective.
Yeah, and so I mean the question with him is basically, is he going to be mature enough? And you said it. Is he going to be mature enough in his shot selection to make? Because when he gets it fully and is like, when I'm within 10 feet, no one can do anything with me. No, like I'll shoot 80%. Like no one can. When he gets that, he's going to win multiple MVPs, multiple titles, everything. Be a top.
Not even Chet can guard him. With all due respect, Chet and Hardenstein would have to double him, and then
OKC doesn't even put Chet on him. They don't even guard him with Chet because they're like Wemby takes it too. It's like a reverse. Wemby takes it too personal with Chet. Yeah. where he does try to take Chet to the basket, and OKC knows like that's the way he's going to dominate us. So they'll put Jalen Williams on him, I imagine. They'll put Caruso on him, and they'll try and beat him over the head like they did Jokic last year if they end up playing. But it's just about if Wemby's ready yet, and that's not a slight to him at all. It's just NBA history says that in your first playoff run, you're just not going to be ready. And I'm going to err on the side of NBA history for now. And he's talented enough. He could disprove that. And I don't want this coming off from me. Like San Antonio could absolutely win the title. They're one of the two teams that I think could beat OKC. I think Denver could. I think San Antonio has the highest, most likely chance of beating them in a series. I think OKC is going to be able to handle Denver and Boston. Clearly, I just picked them in 6 against both. San Antonio would go 7 and be tough, and they'd have to figure out how to solve Wemby. I just think my reason I'm so confident in a Denver series to pick them in 6 is just because I just think they kind of solved Denver last year. And the things that they threw at them, the thing that stymied OKC in that series was, they blew game 1. They did the stupid free throw foul up 2 thing or foul up 3 thing, and then they fouled back and Holmgren missed free throws, and then Aaron Gordon hits that buzzer beater on the Westbrook assist. Like that's just not. They're just more mature now, coaching staff, players. It's just not going to happen this year, I don't think. And they really lost Indiana to game 1 in a similar fashion where they just kind of blew the game. They were up 8-12 the whole game, and then they just blew it at the end. And I think they've grown out of that this year. We see. Late and the other thing is in the playoffs, so many of these games just come down to the end. And say if you think Wemby's the best player in the world, if you think Jokic is the best player in the world, I don't necessarily think there's a wrong answer. I do think, frankly, there's only one right answer for who do you want at the end of a game in the last minute. And I don't think it's SGA, and it's not close, and the numbers reflect it's not close this season. He sat out 38 fourth quarters this season, I believe is the stat. Now that could be wrong, but it's 28 or 38. It's somewhere between 30 and 40 games basically, which is near half the season. And he still easily led the league in total clutch points, which means like in the rare opportunities in the clutch, he just doesn't miss. And even like that was one of my takeaways watching the end of that San Antonio Denver game a few weeks ago. That was so good. Is like no matter how good these guys are, and they're great. I think these are. I tweeted this last week. I think we're seeing like right now in the league, including LeBron, Steph, KD, I think we're seeing like 6 players who are going to go down as top 20 all-time players minimum. I think Shea has the lowest floor of those. Like I don't see any world without injury where Wemby's not a top 10 player of all time based on this current trajectory. Jokic, same thing. Like I just don't know what would have to happen for them to not be in that mix. And if SGA wins this MVP, which looks like he's going to, and then goes through this playoffs and wins another finals MVP, he's going to have more finals MVPs than Steph Curry. He's going to have more regular season MVPs than Kobe Bryant. Like I'm not saying he's with those guys yet, but he's only 27. So I just think we're looking at a trio of guys who are going to be all-timers. But I think right now, like the level of efficiency SGA plays with the end of these games is what OKC's secret superpower, secret sauce is that I don't think people necessarily realize yet, because it's hard to quantify that unless you watch every game, where OKC blows so many people out too. Like at the end of these close games, it's like shocking when he misses. And it doesn't matter what the shot is. It's step back threes, it's step back mid-ranges, he double covered fadeaway mid-range. They just go in. Like it doesn't matter. So that's really my reason why I'm so confident in OKC, really against anyone. But I think Denver's year to beat OKC was last year, frankly. And then Gordon got hurt, and maybe that game 7's super different if he's not playing on a hobbled hamstring. But I don't know. I just think, despite my better judgment, like this is the opposite of how I usually view stuff as teams I root for. Is like I look for the reason to not reverse jinx them or whatever. Like, and I just think OKC is the best team, and I think SGA is the player you'd want in the playoffs, and we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, and Jokic or Wemby will best him. But for right now, even with how historic Wemby can be, I think Wemby's going to need at least a playoff run to be ready for the moment, because everyone thinks they are. All these all-time greats think they are, and very few are truly ready in their first ever appearance. Anthony Edwards is like the only recent. It's like he just stepped in and was immediately ready for the moment. So maybe Wemby will prove me wrong, and he definitely can. He's clearly going to show up defensively no matter what. But I'll just take OKC even over San Antonio, just because I know OKC's been there. I know they've done it, and I know their superstar is as made for the moment as any in the league right now.
So with that concludes our playoff predictions. I think we both put OKC as our back-to-back on that. I think the betting odds say that, so I can't really deviate from that unless, like I said, Wemby does step up to the plate. That's my only X factor on that. But we'll wait and see. Again, we won't be surprised if Cleveland goes a long way in the playoffs. We won't be surprised if Wemby goes ahead and takes that next step. But OKC, we really won't be surprised if they go ahead and they hoist it for another time. But before we head on out, Calif, what you working on with the New Century Press and, of course, the Suave Report?
We'll see what's going on. I have some ideas in my head, but they're pretty dependent upon result, so I'm not gonna throw them out here quite yet. But if OKC makes a deep run, I think I'll have some pretty stuff that I'll at least think is cool coming out. But I don't want to announce exactly what I have in mind yet, just in case they get bounced by Denver or something like that. So, yeah, and then New Century Press, same old high school stuff. Not something that anyone here is probably particularly interested in, but yeah. So keep an eye out here in the next month. I'll do something before that big thing that I want to do at the end too. I've been itching for it. I just have been busy, and the weather's been bad. Just all sorts of stuff going crazy up here lately. But I'll get something done here soon. And yeah, other than that, just excited for this upcoming underwhelming WrestleMania coming up this weekend. I'm pretty.
I have got tickets for Saturday, so
Nice.
we'll see what happens. They finally found a discount that met my liking.
It took a while. They got to get you in the building somehow.
They did. They lowered the prices and they added a discount, and it was even lower than what was said on TV. So I'll take that indeed. But although if I do get a comp come my way, I will probably sell it and see what happens. But again,
absolutely. Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm still have feelers out for anything, so I don't know about, but that I wasn't sure if I was going to get any, because I can get some for Raiders games at times, but I'm assuming baseball I'll probably get with the A's. Oh, I'm sure I'll have lots of opportunities there. But with WrestleMania last year, I didn't have much of an opportunity. I was told and turned away on a couple occasions, but now that there's a lot of comps flying around, that might be a different story. We'll see. But I am going Saturday for sure. So again, Calif, great to have you here. It's truly appreciate you doing and truly appreciate you being a part of what we're doing here all season long. And I look forward to our post-game analysis as far as each and every week on the NBA observations and playoffs. The playoffs analysis you'll provide. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
I don't think so. Just excited. I'm so excited for even the plans tomorrow. I just I've been I mean, when you're, I mean, you Lakers fans have experienced this a bevy of times, but when you get to a certain point in the regular season and you win a title, especially, it's just kind of like you're biding your time, waiting to the playoffs for after the excitement of the first couple months is there. You're so ready to have it back, but then about January, you're just like, all right, I kind of think we get the deal here. So I'm ready for the playoffs to get here. I'm super excited for the actual playoffs to start, but even the play-ins tomorrow, I'll be watching every dribble.
There you go, indeed. So it is Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check out when he has good stuff up at the New Century Press and the Suave Report, indeed. But Calif, we meet next week. We'll have at least game ones done and in the books and some analysis to provide therein. Look forward to it. Maybe even some. Actually, we won't have any postseason awards, really, I guess, to talk about then. But again, might have some news. Well, I'm sure there'll be some.
I think we'll know if Luka's eligible at least.
Yeah, and we'll know. We'll something like that, or if we hear more about Giannis Antetokounmpo, or if we hear more about I mean, Doc Rivers is gone, so
poor Doc.
Yeah, I mean, I think Doc is going back to the broadcast booth at this point. So
he's good at it. Yeah, he should.
I think that's where he needs to go.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. But again, it is, of course, NBA Observations. Calif Poncy, truly appreciate having you here, providing the best in NBA analysis and the best in NBA observations.